Chapter 1259. Demon King. When this title came out of Black Rabbit's mouth and clearly entered the ears of everyone present, the expressions of the four people present were completely different. Noah raised his eyebrows. Reverse 16 Knight's eyes lit up. Jiu Feinyao was startled. Harahai Biaori blinked his eyes. That completely different performance also showed the strong personalities of Noah 16 Knight's reversal, Jiu Feinyao and Her Hibuyaichi. Noah was very interested in this. Reverse 16 Knights was eager to try. Jiu Feinyao was deep in thought. Harahai Biaori had nothing to do. Their different strong personalities caused Black Rabbit's ears to shrink slightly, but it still began to explain under everyone's gaze. As I said before, Hakata is a game world. No matter what it is, it can't be separated from the bestowment game. Black Rabbit said seriously. And in Hakata, there are many Asura gods and Buddhas that have various privileges that can be used in the game. Privileges? Noah scratched his face. So you're saying that some people have special privileges in the game? Yes. The Black Rabbit nodded and put its hands on the side of its long rabbit ears, making a listening gesture. Black Rabbit belongs to the Moon Rabbit clan. They have special privileges and are called the Hakata aristocrats. They belong to a god called Sakra. Black Rabbit's special privilege is called the Judgment Privilege. It's a privilege that only Moon Rabbits have. This privilege allows Black Rabbit to act as a judge in the bestowment game. His ears and eyes are connected to the center of Hakata. No matter where he is, he can know the entire process of the game, making it impossible for both the participants and the organizer to violate the rules. Judgment Privilege. Reverse 16 Knights smiled excitedly. Then does the Demon King also have special privileges in the game? Yes. Black Rabbit's tone became slightly lower. There's a type of authority called the Organizer Authority. It's the authority that allows the holder to play a role in the game as the organizer. Its role is to force others to participate in the game. It can completely ignore the wishes of the participants and make the participants unable to refuse to participate in the game. Ignoring the wishes of the participants and forcing them to participate. Jiu Feinyao was shocked. So overbearing? The existence of the organizer's authority was originally to allow the organizer to formulate more complete rules of the game, so that participants with bad intentions would not be able to interfere with the game through illegal actions. Black Rabbit shook its head. However, some of the people who hold this authority willfully abuse this authority and wantonly force others to participate in the game. The Black Rabbit raised its head and looked straight at Noah's group. This kind of person who abuses the authority of the organizer and forces others to participate in the game of grace for their own purposes, ignoring the wishes of others, is the so-called Demon King. Hearing this, Noah and the rest more or less understood why Black Rabbit mentioned the existence of the Demon King. Noah frowned and met Black Rabbit's gaze. Could it be that your community was forcefully dragged into the game by the Demon King and lost, leading to its decline? Yes. The Black Rabbit lowered its head. Our community was taken away from everything that was necessary to carry out activities as a community. Not only were all our companions taken away, even the flag that symbolized the community itself was taken away. Even the name of the community was not allowed to exist, and we could only call ourselves by the name, no name. The flag and name were all taken away? Harahai Biato was slightly shocked. Even the companions were not left behind? To be precise, it should be said that all the companions that formed the core of the community were all taken away. Black Rabbit bit its lips. Now there are only 122 people left in Black Rabbit's community. Among these 122 people, only Black Rabbit and the young master, who is the leader of the community, have the ability to participate in the game. The other members are all children under the age of 10. Their original status, reputation and companions were all taken away. Only these children and the ruins of the stronghold are left. Everyone was silent. This was a situation that couldn't be any worse. There was no name that could be used to advertise or call themselves, no flag that could be used to promote glory and symbolize, and even all their companions were taken away, leaving only a group of children. This was simply the point of despair, wasn't it? Such a community, it even made people question whether it was necessary to exist. In a situation where there wasn't even a name, perhaps, other people wouldn't even remember this community, let alone question the existence of this community. In such a situation, Black Rabbit could only place its hopes on the newly gathered companions. Black Rabbit wants to protect the home that can bring back the lost companions. Black Rabbit's expression was as if it wanted to shout from the bottom of its heart as it spoke to Noah's group. In order to protect the home of the companions that disappeared because of the game with the Demon King, Black Rabbit must work hard to rebuild the community. One day we will also take back the name and flag of the community. In order to achieve this goal, we need participants like you who have powerful gifts. After saying that, Black Rabbit bowed deeply in the direction of Noah's group. Please lend me your strength. Lend us your strength to our community. An indescribable silence suddenly filled the entire space. Noah's group could all see it clearly. Black Rabbit's delicate body was trembling slightly. This Rabbit, who was known as the aristocrat of the box court, was really putting her life on the line. If she couldn't let Noah's group join the community that she belonged to, then this community would really be finished. Otherwise, Black Rabbit wouldn't have spent so much effort to summon people from other worlds. It was because there was no hope of saving her community in the box court that Black Rabbit could only place its hopes on the people from other worlds. After all, who would be willing to join a community that only had children left? The stronghold was still in ruins and didn't even have a name or flag. In this world that was mainly about games, if one wanted to participate in the game, they had to do it in the name of the community. This way, if a community without a flag and name wanted to participate in the game, it would be very difficult. In this world that was mainly about games, even participating in the game was so difficult. What was the difference between that and being driven to a dead end? Of course, no one would choose to join such a community. However, the 4 people present were definitely outliers. The Demon King? 16 Knights laughed. Very good. This is very interesting. 16 Knights' laughter instantly attracted everyone's attention. What? Zhou Feinyao looked at 16 Knights. Have you decided to join? If you didn't say it before, I would have chosen to join, right? Isn't it interesting to have a battle of wits with the Demon King? 16 Knights shrugged. However, since I already said that I would choose whatever that little brother over there chooses, then I won't take back my words. Then it's the same reason as me, right? Zhou Feinyao suddenly laughed. I won't take back what I said before. Same here. Haruai Hiroyuki still had a casual look. As long as he joins, then I will join. In other words, Noah still had the right to make the decision. Everyone's gaze once again gathered on Noah. Black Rabbit also slightly raised her head. A pair of eyes filled with anxiety, nervousness, and anticipation looked directly at Noah. Under everyone's gaze, Noah bitterly smiled. Noah looked at Black Rabbit with a trace of gentleness in his eyes. Do you want to protect your companion's home? Yes. Black Rabbit was startled at first but then firmly nodded. Black Rabbit wants to protect this home for my companions. Looking at Black Rabbit's firm expression, Noah finally smiled. I understand. Noah nodded. I will join your community. Black Rabbit suddenly raised her head and looked at Noah with surprise. After confirming that Noah was not joking, she tightly pursed her lips, and a smile appeared on her beautiful face. That smile was exceptionally beautiful. Chapter 1260. Oh. Under the huge wall, Noah, 16 Knights, Jun Osaka, and Haruai Hikari all looked up at the spectacular huge rock wall and sighed. We didn't notice it when we fell from the sky. Noah clicked his tongue in amazement. Now that we look at it carefully, it seems that this place is bigger than we imagined, right? Yes. Because Hakata can be said to be the most important city in this world. Black Rabbit explained to everyone in a cheerful and lively tone. In Hakata there is a huge curtain that can cover the entire city. That huge curtain is set up for the races that can't be directly exposed to the sun. In addition, various Asura gods and Buddhas mainly live in the upper level of Hakata. Therefore, there is even a saying that this place is the center of the world. The upper level of Hakata? Noah turned his head and looked at Black Rabbit. Is there a number of levels in this city? Yes. Black Rabbit explained enthusiastically. The entire Hakata city is actually divided into 4 regions: East, South, West, and North. In addition to being divided into 4 regions, Hakata is also divided into 7 outer walls. We call it the boundary wall. It is divided into 7 levels with the boundary wall as the separation. In other words, the entire Hakata city is divided into 4 parts: east, south, west, and north. It is also divided into 7 levels by the boundary wall. The 7 levels we use the term number to differentiate. The closer to the city center, the smaller the number of the level. Black Rabbit explained one by one. In other words, the most central part of Hakata is 1 digit, and the outermost part is 7 digits. At the same time, the closer it is to 1 digit, the stronger the strength and power of the people living in the level and the community. Generally speaking, as long as it reaches 4 digits, it is already comparable to the famous Asura gods and Buddhas. After saying that, Black Rabbit pointed at the door under the huge wall in front of them. In addition, there are many doors used to enter and exit each boundary wall. The door in front of us is the outer door of 2105380, which is also the area where our base is located. 2105380. 7 digits? 16 Knights shrugged. It is indeed the lowest level? Yes. Black Rabbit's cheerful and lively tone became somewhat diffident. No choice. In our community, other than Black Rabbit and the leader, the others don't have the ability to participate in the game of grace. Black Rabbit can't participate in the game as he wishes. There's nothing we can do about it. The members of the Moon Rabbit clan had the same authority as the organizer, which was also a special authority. When you two, who had the authority to judge, acted as the game's judge, neither side could violate the game's rules. Once the rules were violated, you two, as the judge, would be able to use her authority as the judge to determine the offender's defeat on the spot. As a member of the Moon Rabbit clan, the Black Rabbit clan was subject to several restrictions. 1. Starting from the day you become the judge of the game of grace, you are not allowed to participate in any game of grace for 15 days. 2. If you want to participate in the game of gifts, you must first obtain permission from the organizer. 3. You are not allowed to participate in games held outside of Hakata. Due to this reason, the Black Rabbit could not participate in the game of grace as he wished, and could only rely on his work as a judge as the only source of income in the community. Being poor to this point, even if he wanted to squeeze into the top 10, it was impossible. In addition, No Name was a community without a flag or a name, and the internal members were all children, so it was natural for him to be in the bottom 7 digits. No matter what, with everyone joining us, our community will definitely be able to take another step forward. The Black Rabbit quickly pulled himself together and said to Noah and the others, "Now, let's have Black Rabbit take everyone to appraise their own gifts." Appraisal gift? Inverse 16 Knights, Jiuyuao, and Haruai Hibakushi were all slightly stunned. Appraisal gift? Noah was also slightly stunned. Don't you want to know what kind of potential and ability your gifts have? The Black Rabbit blinked his eyes. You should know that the correct understanding of one's own strength is one of the most basic conditions for becoming stronger, right? Upon hearing this, Inverse 16 Knights, Jiuyuao, and Haruai Hibakushi looked at each other with a complicated expression on their faces. Obviously, for these 3 problem children, the powers they possessed should have triggered various events that affected them greatly in various aspects, right? Therefore, even Inverse 16 Knights had a complicated expression on his face. However, including Inverse 16 Knights, Jiuyuao, Haruai Hibakushi, and the rest remained silent and did not say anything. Noah was the only one who more or less frowned. The so-called gifts referred to all kinds of special powers that were bestowed by the Asura gods, Buddhas, demons, elves, and even the stars themselves. There were various kinds of powers. Some of them were powers like magic that Noah often encountered in other worlds. Some of them were powers that existed in the form of objects like relics and god relics. In other words, as long as it was a mysterious power that normal humans could not possess, it could be called a gift. Looking at it this way, the power that Noah possessed was also called a gift in this world. However, Noah's power did not belong to the Asura gods or Buddhas in this world. Looking at it this way, Noah's power could not be called a gift. In view of this, it was still unknown whether the so-called appraisal gift that the Black Rabbit mentioned would work on Noah. Moreover, Noah knew a lot about his own power, so there was no need for it to be appraised. However, even so, Noah did not say anything. Instead, he nodded at the Black Rabbit. "Then bring us to try it out." Yes. The Black Rabbit was like a tour guide and a real rabbit as it leaped forward. "Then please follow the Black Rabbit." Therefore, under the Black Rabbit's lead, they walked into the city called Hakata. If one were to use an idiom to describe Hakata, even if it could not be called a paradise on earth, it could be described as beautiful scenery. The bustling city did not have the usual hustle and bustle that a normal human city would have. There was only a faint sense of tranquility and peace. The streets were paved with stone bricks. There was beautiful vegetation on both sides of the streets. The shops were close to each other and there were all kinds of products on the shop fronts. The pedestrians came and went, giving off a lively vibe. Walking on such a street, Noah could see a square with a fountain and an open-air restaurant with good lighting from time to time. It was very attractive everywhere. We're heading to a branch of a community called Thousand Eyes. The Black Rabbit, who was walking in front of everyone, introduced it to Noah and the rest. It's a large-scale business community formed by members who have a special magic eye gift. Their power is spread all over the 4 districts of Hakata. They're very famous no matter if it's the upper or lower class. Is it a gift of the demon eye? Noah said thoughtfully. You plan to let a member of this community help us appraise the gift? Yes. The Black Rabbit smiled slightly, but for some reason that smile was a little dejected. Because the Black Rabbit has an acquaintance in Thousand Eyes, so I can ask her for help. Although she's a very troublesome person. Noah looked at the Black Rabbit in confusion. A very troublesome person? Yes. The Black Rabbit nodded heavily. A very, very troublesome person. However, just as this sentence fell, the next moment an accident happened. Yo-ho! Accompanied by such a cheer in front of them, a figure suddenly rushed over at an extremely fast speed. Like a cannonball, it heavily crashed into the Black Rabbit's abdomen. Dong! In the muffled sound, the Black Rabbit did not even have time to react. His entire body flew out from the impact and rolled into a ball with the attacking figure. Chapter 1261. The sudden movement made Noah, 16 knights, Jiu Fein Yao and Hurai Bu Yao all stand up in shock. Noah and 16 knights in particular were shocked. They turned their heads abruptly and looked behind them. There, the Black Rabbit that was suddenly sent flying was sitting on the ground, holding its head while moaning. So painful, and in the Black Rabbit's arms there was a little girl. She didn't even look as young as Aster, only about 10 years old, very young and delicate, but had a head of very eye-catching snow-white hair, wearing a kimono. This little girl was tightly hugging the Black Rabbit, burying her entire face in the Black Rabbit's great chest, rubbing it with an intoxicated expression. Sure enough, it's the Black Rabbit. This feeling is too great. Too great. That appearance was simply like an idiot. At this time, the Black Rabbit felt something strange in front of its chest. Lowering its head, looking at the little girl rubbing its chest back and forth like an idiot, it couldn't help but be surprised. Lord Byakuya, why are you here? Of course it's because I feel that the Black Rabbit is about to come. The little girl called Byakuya let out a strange laugh, her face still rubbing against the Black Rabbit's chest. So, I came to rub off the delicious rabbit. This feeling really makes people speechless. Please let go of me. The Black Rabbit's face immediately turned red, grabbing Byakuya's shoulder and using all its strength to push it out. However, that petite girl continued to rub against the Black Rabbit's great chest. The intoxicated expression on her face could be seen by anyone. What? Jiu Fein Yao was somewhat confused. What is this situation? Hurai Bu Yao also tilted his head, raising the cat in his arms in front of him and asked. Are all the people in Hakata so strange? Meow. The 3-haired cat in front of Hurai Bu Yao let out a lazy cry. Is that so? Hurai Hiroyuki nodded as if he understood the meaning of this lazy call. As for Noah and 16 knights, they stared at White Yiksha, who was rubbing against Black Rabbit's chest. Their eyes flickered with a terrifying look. Hey little brother. The corner of 16 knights' mouth rose slightly. Did you notice that kimono lowly approaching just now? No. Noah narrowed his eyes. Although it's unbelievable, I really didn't notice anything. That's right. He didn't notice it. Until White Yiksha sent Black Rabbit flying, Noah, who possessed superb senses, did not sense any trace of White Yiksha's aura, nor did he discover White Yiksha's approach. This was inconceivable. Although Noah was often approached by people around him without him noticing, it was because there was no hostility, malice, or killing intent. Moreover, the aura of the person approaching him was very familiar. In the face of an unfamiliar aura, even if the other party did not have hostility, killing intent, or malice, it should be impossible for him to not notice it. After all, Black Rabbit was beside Noah and was less than a meter away from Noah. As a result, under such circumstances, until White Yiksha made a sound and sent Black Rabbit flying, Noah was not able to notice the other party's approach. What did this mean? It meant that if White Yiksha's action just now was not to throw herself into his arms but to assassinate him, Noah would not notice anything until Black Rabbit died. Of course, when an individual with hostility, malice, and killing intent approached, Noah's senses would be sharpened by several levels. It should not be to this extent. But even so, it was shocking enough. This should be the second time I've encountered such a situation besides Orpheus, right? Noah stared at White Yiksha, who kept rubbing against Black Rabbit's chest. That girl, what is her background? Although he said that, Noah had a different feeling about the girl named White Yiksha. That kind of feeling was called intimacy. Stroking his chest and feeling the emotion called intimacy, Noah's eyes flickered and then he smiled. As expected of a world where all kinds of Asura gods and Buddhas roam freely, the smell of incense filled the entire space. In a standard kimono room, White Yiksha, who was wearing a kimono, sat down on the seat of honor. She held a paper fan in her hand and fanned herself while casting her gaze across. There, Noah, 16 Knights Reversal, Jiu-Yuasuka, Haruhito Hikari, and Black Rabbit sat down. Black Rabbit, Jiu-Yuasuka, and Haruhito Hikari were all sitting in standard positions. Noah and 16 Knights Reversal sat there casually and met White Yiksha's gaze. You are the new companions that Black Rabbit found, right? White Yiksha's tender face had a smile that was either mischievous or malicious. Let me introduce myself. I am a member of the Thousand Eyes who established a base in the 3345 Outer Sect, White Yiksha. So don't look at me like this. I am a big shot with a base in the 4 digits. 4 digits. 16 Knights Reversal, Jiu-Yuasuka, and Haruhito Hikari's group all looked at White Yiksha. Their eyes showed some signs of fighting spirit. Noah looked at White Yiksha with a calm expression, but he was muttering in his heart. 4 digits. Is it only 4 digits that I can't detect? Although Black Rabbit said that 4 digits was the level of most famous Asura gods and Buddhas, Noah's guess of White Yiksha's level was higher. In other words, Noah didn't think that ordinary Asura gods and Buddhas could get close to him without him noticing. Or is it that the gods in this world are much stronger than the gods I knew before? This wasn't impossible. However, what Noah cared more about was why he had an unusual sense of closeness to White Yiksha. At this time, White Yiksha also turned his attention to Noah. He looked at Noah, tilted his head, and was a little puzzled. Kid over there, you seem to be a little special? With one sentence, everyone's attention was drawn to Noah. Noah was slightly startled. He looked at White Yiksha with some uncertainty. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "Why do you say that?" "If I knew, I wouldn't talk to you in such an uncertain way," White Yiksha said in a somewhat mature tone. "However, you're right. If I have to say why I said that, it's because of my feelings, right?" Feelings? Could it be that White Yiksha was the same as Noah and would have an unusual sense of closeness to Noah? "Hey kid." White Yiksha seemed to care a little and waved at Noah. "Come here and let me have a good look." Noah scratched his cheek, then helplessly spread out his hands. He got up, went forward, and sat down in front of White Yiksha. White Yiksha suddenly had a thoughtful expression. He first looked at Noah, then reached out his hand and pressed it on Noah's chest. At this moment, a strange phenomenon happened. With Noah as the center, a dazzling light burst out from Noah's body like a flame. Black Rabbit, 16 Knights Reversal, Jiu-Yuasuka, and Kasuga Hikari were all shocked. They raised their hands and blocked in front of them. Not to mention the others, even Noah was surprised. Because at this moment, in Noah's heart, on the stone plate that represented the authority of the 10 incarnations, one of the patterns suddenly flashed with an unprecedentedly strong light. That picture depicted a majestic white horse. It was the incarnation of the white horse. With one hand on Noah's body, White Yiksha ignored the strong light that burst out like a flame. He raised his head and looked at Noah. All kinds of emotions appeared in his eyes. Astonishment. Doubt. Confusion. In the end, all sorts of emotions turned into intense curiosity, causing Bai Yiksha to speak word by word. You're carrying the sun on your back? Chapter 1262. You're carrying the sun on your back? White Yiksha's words stunned Noah. What did he mean by that? White Yiksha didn't say anything. Instead he looked straight at Noah. After a while he suddenly laughed. Interesting. A human actually has the essence of carrying the sun on his back. How interesting. With that, White Yiksha withdrew his palm. At the same time, the white horse that was blooming with an unprecedented dazzling light in Noah's heart gradually dimmed. The blazing light on his body also calmed down bit by bit until it completely disappeared. Only then did Black Rabbit, 16 Nights Reversal Jiun Flying Bird, and Kasuga Hibia raise their heads in surprise. Noah stroked his chest and looked at White Yiksha. What's going on? White Yiksha raised his eyebrows. Don't you know? What's wrong? Noah frowned. Should I know something? Logically speaking, you should know. White Yiksha waved the fan in his hand and looked at Noah with a faint smile. Or do you actually not know who I am? What? Noah looked straight at White Yiksha. Should I know who you are? Then let me introduce myself again. White Yiksha suddenly smiled. A heart-palpitating aura emerged from his petite body. I'm the star spirit of the sun and white night. In the past I was known as the White Night Demon King White Yiksha. When this sentence came out of White Yiksha's mouth, everyone present gasped. Star spirit. In this box court world where all kinds of Asuras, gods and Buddhas gathered, there were 3 races that could be called the strongest. 1. A transcendent individual born with the identity of a god spirit. 2. The highest level existence among the elves, ghosts and demons star spirits. 3. A strange beast that only existed in myths and legends, the apex of the phantom beast dragon species. In this world where gods and Buddhas were everywhere and mythological beasts were as numerous as dogs, these 3 existences were regarded as the 3 strongest races. If these 3 races were to be ranked, the star spirits would be at the top of the 3 races. It was a type of main sprite that existed on stars and above. Fairies, ghosts, demons and other concepts of the highest level of existence. Black Rabbit had said that the so-called gifts referred to the special powers bestowed by various Asuras, Buddhas, elves, demons and stars. The stars referred to the star spirits. In other words, White Yiksha was an existence that could bestow power to others, allowing ordinary humans to obtain the power known as bestowment and become extraordinary individuals. Furthermore, White Yiksha was not an ordinary star spirit, but the sun's star spirit. In other words, it was not an exaggeration to treat White Yiksha as the sun itself. In addition, the so-called Yiksha referred to the gods of water and earth, the ghost god known as the evil god. White Yiksha was the star spirit of the strongest species and at the same time it was also a god. This way, even in this box where infinite Asura gods and Buddhas were gathered, the girl named White Yiksha was definitely one of the top existences. However, Noah finally understood why he felt close to White Yiksha. Because if White Yiksha was the sun itself, then Noah, who could use the power of the white horse, had a deep relationship with White Yiksha. Noah's white horse was the authority that he had seized from the invincible war god named Welslana. As the guardian of the sun's incarnation that could transform into 10 different incarnations, Welslana's mythical ring was that he could transform into a white horse and be responsible for transporting the sun, making the sun follow the trajectory of rising from the east and setting in the west. If the sun was compared to an emperor on patrol, then the white horse was the mount responsible for protecting and transporting the sun. Therefore, Welslana was also known as the Son of Light, known as the sun's favorite or even the son of the sun. Therefore, White Yiksha said that Noah carried the sun on his back. This was because Noah's body had the power to transport the sun. Therefore, Noah and White Yiksha had a special sense of each other. This was because in terms of nature and power, White Yiksha was the sun, and Noah was the son of the sun. It was because he sensed the existence of his mother, that the white horse, in Noah's body reacted. Noah had a sense of intimacy with White Yiksha because his body had the power that originated from the sun. White Yiksha could sense Noah because Noah's body had the power of the same root as hers. Upon understanding this, the members of No Name, led by Black Rabbit, immediately looked at Noah in surprise. Jiufei Niao and Kazuhito Hiroyuki were still fine because they didn't have any real experience in myths and legends, so they didn't know how shocking this was. However, Black Rabbit and 16 Nights Reversal were really surprised. Transporting the sun? Black Rabbit looked at Noah in a daze and said hesitantly. In other words, Noah-san has the gift of the sun god? Hey little brother, are you still hiding such a method? 16 Nights Reversal shouted excitedly and discontentedly. Why didn't you take it out when you were fighting with me? You also said it was a fight. Noah rolled his eyes. This isn't a power that can be used to fight. You're right. This power is indeed not like a normal gift. It's a power that can be used to fight. White Yiksha closed the paper fan in his hand and smiled with interest. If it was a gift from the sun god, then there shouldn't be such a big reaction when he saw me. So, rather than saying that it was a gift from the sun god, it's better to say that he has the essence of the sun god. Huh? Black Rabbit was shocked. In other words, Noah-san is not a human but a god? No. This guy is undoubtedly a human, but he has the essence of a god. White Yiksha was also distressed. It's like the outside is a human and the inside is a god. It's also like the inside is a human and the outside is a god. So contradictory. It's really strange. Hearing this, Noah also smiled bitterly. However, White Yiksha was right. Noah's power was indeed not simply obtained from a god. Instead, he directly killed a god and usurped it from a god. In addition, from the moment he usurped authority, Noah was reincarnated as a god slayer, because of Pandora's great curse. Rather than a human who obtained power from a god, it was better to say that he was a monster who kicked a god off the altar and replaced it. White Yiksha was distressed because he did not understand this point. Forget it. Anyway, the power you carry doesn't just seem to be the sun. There seem to be many other things besides the sun. White Yiksha knocked on the floor with the closed paper fan in his hand. This is the first time I've seen such a strange existence like you. Kid, do you want to consider coming to my place? I can treat you like a real son. Noah's eyelids suddenly twitched. Because White Yiksha was the sun, and Noah had the power of the sun, this was not wrong. However, Gaia and Aleya, who claimed to be Noah's mother, already had the suppression power of a lowly. Pandora, the lowly, also claimed to be Noah's mother. Now, White Yiksha's young daughter wanted to accept Noah as a son. Was there a need to be so suitable? As for Black Rabbit, it jumped up directly. No way. Lord White Yiksha. Black Rabbit hurriedly said. Mr. Noah has already joined Black Rabbit's community. How can he become Lord White Yiksha's son? Why not? White Yiksha said matter-of-factly. Anyway, you are my pet. The man you fancy will become my son. Isn't that good? Black Rabbit is not Lord White Yiksha's pet. Black Rabbit looked like it was about to cry. Lord White Yiksha, please stop teasing Black Rabbit. Ha 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 ha. White Yiksha laughed out loud. All right. Seeing that you have met such an interesting person today, I'll give you some gifts. After saying that, Yasha clapped his hands and a few cards appeared in the air. Chapter 1263. About half an hour later, Noah, Kuroto, Haruai Hibakushi, and Reverse 16 Nights walked out of the branch of Thousand Eyes. Noah turned around and looked at the building that looked like a normal shop on the street. He then raised a card in his hand. It was a card that seemed to flash with all the colors in the world. However, the color of the card was not the same color as the flash. Not only Noah but Reverse 16 Nights, Kuroto, and Haruai Hibakushi each held a card that flashed with the same light, but the color was completely different. Noah's card was dark gold. Reverse 16 Nights' card was cobalt blue. Kuroto's card was wine red. Haruai Hibakushi's card was pearl emerald. The four of them all held such a strange card, and they all looked at the surface of the card at the same time and fell into silence. Only Kuroto seemed to be in a good mood. I didn't expect Byakusama to give us 4 gift cards. He's so generous. Gift card. It was a type of gift that could materialize, such as weapons, armor, tools, items, and so on, into cards that could be stored. The card's official name was Laplace paper, which was called part of omniscience, so the price was quite expensive. However, this kind of card called the gift card could not only store the gifts in the form of materialization, but it could also display the names of all the gifts held by the holder. In other words, with this gift card, the true face of Noah's group's gift would be revealed. These 4 extremely expensive cards had been casually given away by White Yiksha. It could be imagined how good Byakuya's mood was when he saw Noah. Looking carefully, reverse 16 Knights, Kuroto, and Haruai Hibakushi's gift card were marked with the name of the gift they held. Reverse 16 Knights gift card marked with the name of the gift, Truth Unknown. Kuroto's gift card marked with the name of the gift, Light of Might. Haruai Hibakushi's gift card marked with the name of the gift, Life Catalog. According to Kuroto, the gifts the 3 of them currently held belonged to the highest level among humans. Noah had already experienced reverse 16 Knights, Truth Unknown. However, Noah was more or less curious about the abilities bestowed by the 2 girls, Kiyuki and Haruai Biao. Kuroto's Light of Might was a kind of ability that could use language to forcibly control an individual, making the individual under her control obey her orders and act by force. This gift was almost identical to the dominating speech spirit of the priestly incarnation in Noah's 10 Incarnations authority. Haruai Hibakushi's Life Catalog allowed the holder to obtain the ability to communicate with other races whose language was different, and obtain a permanent special ability from them. For example, from a dog, Haruai Hibakushi could obtain an extraordinary sense of smell. From an elephant, he could obtain the ability to instantly increase his weight. From a leopard, he could obtain astonishing running speed. From an eagle, he could obtain extremely high vision. Byakuya believed that Haruai Hibakushi could even obtain the ability of the phantom beasts in the box, which was a very powerful gift. The gifts the 3 of them held were worthy of the title of humanity's highest level gift. However, reverse 16 Knights, Kuroto, and Haruai Hibakushi didn't pay attention to the knowledge of the gift displayed on their gift cards. Instead, they all cast their gazes on the dark gold gift card in Noah's hand. Taking a closer look, there was nothing written on the gift card in Noah's hand. Why isn't it written? Kuroto's excitement gradually calmed down and turned into confusion. Undoubtedly, Mr. Noah has such a powerful gift, doesn't he? Hearing that, Noah didn't say anything on the surface, but he felt more or less helpless in his heart. He still remembered how surprised Byakuya and Kuroto were when Noah received the gift card and there was no information on it. That was to be expected, wasn't it? The gift card was known as an omniscient card. Not to mention in the box, even in all kinds of other worlds, the gift card could display the information of the gift. However, there were 2 special cases today. One was reverse 16 Knights. The gift card of reverse 16 Knights only had the words, "The truth is unknown." The rest of the information didn't appear, which also shocked Byakuya and Kuroto. However, the situation of reverse 16 Knights wasn't that the gift card couldn't identify the original gift, but that the gift of reverse 16 Knights had 2 abilities: the gift of shattering heaven and earth, and the power of shattering gift. Because of the latter, the gift card in his hand was invalidated by the gift of reverse 16 Knights. Therefore, the gift card of reverse 16 Knights only had the words, "The truth is unknown." As for Noah, there was no information at all. According to Byakuya, there was only one possibility for such a situation to occur. Toe gift. Reverse 16 Knights narrowed his eyes and drew back the corners of his mouth. This is really an interesting conclusion, so interesting that I want to see what's in that kimono loli's head. Yes. Byakuya's conclusion was that the person holding the gift card didn't have a gift, which led to such a situation. Otherwise, even if it had the power to invalidate the gift like reverse 16 Knights, there would be a description of, "The truth is unknown," that was similar to the failure of the appraisal. Therefore, if nothing was shown, it could only prove that the person needed to be appraised didn't exist. That was all. However, that was also within Noah's expectations. After all, Noah's power didn't come from this world's Azura gods, elves, demons, or even stars. Even Laplace, who claimed to be omniscient, couldn't possibly have knowledge that didn't exist in this entire worldview, right? That was all there was to it. No matter what, our goal has been achieved. Noah, who was well aware of his situation, shrugged, put away the gift card and looked at you Tuesday. "Now, take us to the community's stronghold first." "What? Are we leaving now?" Reverse 16 Knights glanced at the shop behind him and was eager to try. "That kimono loli seems to be quite powerful. Don't you want to play with her?" As soon as he said that, Jiuyuki and Haruhi Biechi's eyes flickered with a restless light. They looked like problem students who wanted to cause trouble for their teacher. No. Black Rabbit's long rabbit ears trembled as she quickly stopped them. Lord White Yiksha is a deity of the stars. Although her stronghold is only in the 4 digits, she is the ruler of the entire East District. She is also known as the strongest existence among the rulers of the hierarchy. In the past she was one of the demon kings who wreaked havoc in the entire Hakata. She has long been recognized as an existence that must not be provoked. We must not challenge such a Lord White Yiksha. I have the same idea. Noah laughed bitterly. Although I don't know how strong White Yiksha is, it's certain that she's ridiculously strong. I don't think I can defeat her now. Or rather, even if he used his full strength, Noah didn't think he could easily defeat White Yiksha. Unless he used his true trump card, which was the incarnation of a warrior. Reverse 16 Knights, Jiuyuki and Haruhi Byaichi curled their lips unwillingly but didn't say anything. At this moment, Noah suddenly felt a strong gaze on him, causing him to turn his head and look behind him. However, there was nothing there. Black Rabbit and the others who were about to walk forward noticed Noah's abnormality and turned around. Mr. Noah? Black Rabbit was puzzled. What's wrong? Noah's eyes flickered and after a while he retracted his gaze. Nothing. Chapter 1264. Walking on the beautiful path, Black Rabbit was like an innocent young girl jumping up and down. Seemed to be in a very good mood. However, the so-called Moon Rabbit was indeed an innocent and naive race. The Moon Rabbit clan that Black Rabbit belonged to was an existence mentioned in Indian mythology. In Indian mythology, the Moon Rabbit was originally just an ordinary rabbit. In order to save an old man who was about to die in the fire, it took the initiative to jump into the flames and was buried in the sea of fire, sacrificing itself. Because of this, the self-sacrificing rabbit moved the gods and was chosen by the gods to become their family. Since then, the Moon Rabbit clan existed. In other words, the so-called Moon Rabbits were a group of people who sacrificed themselves for merit and were chosen by the gods. A moon rabbit that could sacrifice itself to save others, whether it was in terms of merit or reputation, was an existence that could move others and be trusted by others. It wouldn't be wrong to say that such an existence was naive and unaffected, right? At the very least, Noah couldn't help but smile at the sight of you two, and he feigned nonchalance as he spoke. You seem to be in a good mood? Yes. Black Rabbit's mood can be said to be the best it has been in years. Black Rabbit replied in a happy tone. The originally poor and destitute community has suddenly gained 4 members with great strength and potential. From today onwards, our community will definitely change. From Black Rabbit's tone, everyone could hear a strong sense of hope and expectation. This hope and expectation came completely from the heart. Therefore, Black Rabbit was happy about this. However, this happiness was not directed at himself but at the community. Feeling happy from the heart for the happiness of others made everyone deeply understand that Black Rabbit was indeed a descendant of the Moon Rabbit clan, who sacrificed themselves for merit. Therefore, even the 3 problem children, Reverse 16 Knights, Jiu Yuasuka, and Haruhi Toshiaki's expressions became much more relaxed. If everyone knows that such an outstanding member has joined, they will definitely be very happy, right? Black Rabbit said to itself in an extremely cheerful manner. As the leader, young Master Ren won't have to work so hard anymore. I say, Black Rabbit, even though you're so happy and I don't want to pour cold water on you, why don't you think about yourself a little? Noah sighed helplessly. Didn't you say that until now, the existence of the community has been sustained by your income as a judge? So, among everyone, you're the one who has had the hardest time, right? Huh. The Black Rabbit didn't seem to expect Noah to say such a thing. After being slightly stunned, it hurriedly shook its head. No, Black Rabbit isn't having it that hard. Originally, as a member of the Moon Rabbit clan who has the authority to judge, Black Rabbit's duty is to be the judge of various games of bestowment. Compared to others, young Master Ren and everyone in the community are the ones who have it really tough. Is that so? Juan Fei Niao's gaze landed on Black Rabbit. His words were both provocative and rebuttal as he spoke majestically. If that's the case, then there's no need for you to desperately beg us to join the community, right? Isn't that proof that you've been working hard for the community? That's what I think too. Haruhi Buyao looked around as if he was admiring the beautiful scenery around him. However, he interrupted at the perfect moment. It's not good to be too humble. You haven't considered yourself at all, have you? 16 Nights reversal was even more blunt. Although this is also a virtue, it'll make people feel disgusted if you go overboard. That'll make people very unhappy, you know? Uh. Black Rabbit's rabbit ears drooped as if it was a little dejected. But why am I suddenly being lectured? I just want you to think about yourself a little. Noah shrugged. Just like everyone said, dedication is a virtue. However, if you blindly contribute without receiving anything in return, then as your companion, you will indeed feel a little unhappy. The main thing is that we can't accept it, right? 16 Nights reversal. Jiuan Fein Yao and Huai Bu Yao nodded in agreement. Everyone here, including Noah, was in existence with high self-esteem. It wasn't impossible to accept help from others. However, if you blindly let others help you, then it would only show your own powerlessness and incompetence. Without a doubt, this was something Noah and the others absolutely couldn't accept. Therefore here they still had to give Black Rabbit, who was about to become a companion, some thought work. However, Black Rabbit, who took sacrifice as an instinct and took it for granted, had a perplexed expression. Is that so? Seeing Black Rabbit's confused look, Noah, 16 Nights reversal, Jiuan Fein Yao, and Huai Bu Yao all looked at each other and turned their heads. Just as they were about to say something to Black Rabbit, they suddenly shut their mouths at the same time and stopped in their tracks. Black Rabbit suddenly stopped and looked at Noah and the others, who suddenly stopped. After hesitating for a while, it spoke with some trepidation. Everyone, did Black Rabbit make you angry? Black Rabbit's question didn't attract any response from anyone. Because with Noah as the leader, the group of problem children all looked forward. There were many small alleys. Black Rabbit tilted its head with a confused look, but in the next moment, its long rabbit ears trembled and its expression froze. It turned its head abruptly and looked at the many small alleys in front of it. Then the Black Rabbit let out a delicate cry. Who's there? Everyone suddenly went silent. Immediately after, a voice that sounded like a low chuckle rang out. Oh, have I been discovered? As expected of a rabbit whose ears can connect to the center of the courtyard. Saying such a sentence, a figure squeezed out of the small alleyway in front of them. It was a strange man who was more than 2 meters tall and extremely burly. However, his huge body was stuffed into a close-fitting evening gown. It was a strange man with a violent appearance. Seeing this burly man, Black Rabbit was slightly shocked. Jared Gasper. I'm glad you still remember me, Black Rabbit. The burly man, who was called Jared by Black Rabbit, put on a fake smile and bowed to everyone present. Hello everyone, I'm the leader of Forsgaro. Just as Black Rabbit called me, my name is Jared. Hearing this, Noah, 16 Nights reversal, Jiuyuki and Haruhito Masaki looked at each other again. Then they all looked at Black Rabbit with eyes full of questions. Receiving the group's gaze, Black Rabbit explained softly. In the upper levels of the box court, there is a community led by the Demon King called the 666 Beasts. Gilders Forsgaro is under the command of the 666 Beasts. In the vicinity of this 2105380 outer gate, they have control over all the medium-sized communities that can move around. They are quite a powerful force. Black Rabbit's explanation made everyone's eyes change. Other than Noah, 16 Nights reversal, Jiuyuki, and Haruhito Masaki all looked at Jared with restless eyes. I see. 16 Nights reversal smiled happily. A community under the command of the Demon King? 16 Nights reversal's smile was no doubt the smile of someone who had his eyes on an interesting prey. However, in Jared's eyes, it was a smile of reverence. He puffed out his chest and looked extremely proud. Well, compared to the super large community of Thousand Eyes, which covers all areas and classes, my community only occupies a position in the 7 digits. But it's still much better than no name, which doesn't even have a flag or a name, right? You? Black Rabbit's expression suddenly became angry. Just as he was about to step forward, he was stopped by Noah. And Noah asked as if nothing had happened. A big shot from the outer gate of 2105380 came looking for us. No name, which doesn't even have a flag or a name. What do you want from us? I'm here to invite you, Jared said directly. Do you want to join my community? Chapter 1265. Do you want to join my community? The moment this sentence came out of Jard's mouth, Black Rabbit's expression froze. With Noah as the leader, reverse 16 knights, Jiuyuki, and Haruhito Masaki all answered in unison. No. There was not even a second of hesitation in this answer. Noah, 16 knights in reverse, Jiuyu Fein Yao, and the Haruna tribe's members immediately rejected Gilder's invitation without any hesitation. The artificial smile on Jard's face was completely frozen. Black Rabbit's frozen expression was immediately replaced by surprise, and even her eyes curved into the shape of a crescent moon. Under such circumstances, the expressions of Noah, 16 Knights Reversal, Jiao Fein Yao, and the Haruna tribe Yao did not change in the slightest. They still looked as if they were going to do whatever they wanted. From this point of view, there was no doubt that these four people were extremely similar to each other. That attitude of not being taken seriously at all made the muscles on Jard's face twitch a little, and his expression became as if he was forcing a smile. "I'm sorry, can you tell me the reason?" Hearing this, Noah and the others looked at Jard with a faint smile. "Isn't the reason very simple?" Noah said lightly. "Because we have already agreed to join Black Rabbit's community." Reverse 16 Knights, Jiuyuki and Haruhito Masaki did not speak. But their nonchalant expressions made it clear that they did not bother to explain anything. "Just because of this reason?" Jard's smile began to turn ugly. "With all due respect, the community that Black Rabbit belongs to is the No Name, that has neither a flag nor a name. My community, on the other hand, is the most powerful force in the entire 2105380 outer sect. There should be no reason for everyone to choose No Name over my community, right?" And then 16 Knights Reversal asked casually, "Is there any reason that can attract us to join you?" Jard was confused. What could attract people to join? Wasn't that obvious? As the number one community in the 2105380 outer sect, could it be that this alone was not enough to attract people to join? As if she saw through Jard's confusion, Jiuyuki spoke. "Just because your influence is bigger, you will definitely attract people. This kind of thinking is really superficial." Jiuyuki mocked without holding back. "Let me tell you, Mr. Fake Gentleman, before I came to Hakata, Jiuyuki had a rich family that could dominate the entire island, and I gave up such a good fortune to come to Hakata. In the end, you, a force that only controls a small area, don't think you're attractive to me, right?" Jard's barely maintained the smile on his face began to change. "I came here, I just want to be friends," Masaki said straightforwardly. "As for me, I don't want to be friends with someone who reeks of blood like you." Jard could no longer smile. His entire face was contorted. It was the kind of expression that would only appear when one's core was exposed. Noah, 16 Knights Reversal, Kyuka Asaka and Haruhide Masaki had already noticed it. This Jard was definitely not a polite gentleman. "Did you hear that? Fake gentleman?" Noah glanced at Jard's close-fitting clothes. "Even if you put on a human skin, a beast is still a beast. The violent and bloody aura on your body has already betrayed your true nature. I'm sure you've done a lot of terrible things, right? If you know what's good for you, you'd better get out of here." Jard's face was finally filled with anger. Jard did not expect that his polite invitation to these newcomers to join his community would not only fail, but also be humiliated like this. However, Noah and the others' words made Jard completely unable to refute them. This caused Jard's face to swell and tiger stripes gradually appeared on it. However, in the next moment Jard seemed to have thought of something. He took a few deep breaths and suppressed the anger in his heart. Then he sneered at Noah and the others. "I didn't expect that I would lose to a member of No Name. There's no other way. I originally prepared this move to deal with Black Rabbit, but now it comes in handy." As he said that, Jard raised his hand. At this moment, from the surrounding alleys, people in black robes rushed out one after another and surrounded Jard. There were more than a dozen people in black robes surrounding Jard. Moreover, each of them had a rather fierce aura about them. Obviously, they were all members of Jard's community. However, no one was surprised by the appearance of these people, including Black Rabbit. Since they were able to discover Jard's presence, Noah and the others naturally discovered their presence as well. However, in the next moment, the scene that appeared in front of everyone made Black Rabbit's expression change. Behind Jard, a person in a black robe threw a child heavily on the ground. It was a little boy who looked to be about 11 or 12 years old, wearing a brown robe. Seeing this little boy, Black Rabbit immediately cried out in surprise. Young Master Ren. Hearing this, the eyes of 16 Knights Retroactive Ju Yufei and Huai Tribe Yao instantly froze. Noah also raised his eyes and looked at Jard, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Although he did not know the little boy, Black Rabbit had just mentioned the name Young Master Ren. That was the leader of No Name. In other words, he was Black Rabbit's companion. Black Rabbit. Ren ignored the pain from the heavy impact on the ground and shouted in Black Rabbit's direction while holding one of his arms. Jard captured everyone. Black Rabbit first widened his eyes, then glared at Jard angrily. In No Name, other than Black Rabbit, there were more than 100 children. The everyone that Ren mentioned was definitely referring to those children. In other words, not only did Jard capture the leader of No Name, Ren, but he also captured all the children in No Name. Actually, it would have been better if I had done this from the beginning. The fake smile on Jard's face was finally replaced by a ruthless expression from the bottom of his heart. After all, I have always wanted you to join my community, Black Rabbit. In the box court, you too was a famous noble. Not only did they have many powerful gifts, but they also had the authority to decide the outcome of the gift game. To the box court, they were very special. For a community, just having one of them as a member was enough to coat the community with a layer of gold. Therefore, Jard had been watching Black Rabbit for a long time. It's not too late to join my community now. Jard grinned and smiled. If you join my community now, not only will I treat this group of brats well, I will also forgive your rudeness just now. How about it? In other words, if Noah and the others did not choose to join Jard's community, then all the children of No Name, led by Ren, would not have a good ending. Black Rabbit's shoulders were already trembling. It was because of anger. Black Rabbit stared at Jard. Because of his excessive anger, the entire space around Black Rabbit was filled with heavy pressure. You dare. As you two, who was known as a noble of the box court, Black Rabbit already possessed extraordinary strength. However, because of the limitations of the authority, Black Rabbit could not participate in the gift game as he wished, which led to such a destitute situation. However, if he faced you two directly, ordinary thieves were no threat at all. Therefore, the heavy pressure caused Jard and the others to freeze on the spot. It seems that you still don't understand your position? Jard's forehead was dripping with cold sweat, but he still forced a smile. Since that's the case, let me remind you. After saying that, Judd lifted his leg and kicked at the panicked Ren with a ferocious grin on his face, bringing with it a whistling wind. Chapter 1266. In fact, Jard was not a human but a tiger. In the box, other than humans, there were also Azura gods, Buddhas, elves, demons, and even the star spirits that represented the stars themselves. It was not surprising that there were other races in the box as well. Just like the many worlds that Noah had been to, there were also many races in the box. As long as it was an existence that could be mentioned in myths and legends, all of them existed in the box court. For example, orcs. For example, vampires. For example, phantasmal beasts. For example, ghosts. And so on and so forth. Countless races could be found in the box. And in the box, there was a so-called spirit lattice. The so-called spirit lattice referred to the merits of an individual, and also the ranking of life. By having a certain kind of merit, an originally very ordinary individual could obtain a spirit lattice that symbolized that merit, and thus the level of life would be elevated. For example, as long as an animal like a cat could live to an unimaginable age, it could obtain a spirit lattice and elevate the level of life, thus becoming in existence like a demon or ghost. It was the same for other beasts. Just having a long lifespan would be regarded as a kind of merit and even be worshipped by the world. They would obtain an extraordinary spirit lattice, and the level of life would undergo an explosive change. The so-called phantasmal beasts were elevated in this way. Moreover, depending on the level of their spirit lattice, they could obtain all kinds of gifts, and even be inherited by their descendants with their own bloodline. For example, Black Rabbit was chosen by the gods because of Moon Rabbit's self-sacrifice and dedication to others in the beginning. She became the god's dependent and obtained a spirit lattice, which led to the birth of Moon Rabbit. As a descendant of Moon Rabbit, Black Rabbit also obtained this spirit lattice through inheritance. In other words, if there was inheritance there would be merit, and if there was merit there would be spirit lattice. That was how it was. Therefore, by completing a certain merit, obtaining a spirit lattice and elevating the level of life, it was not rare to see an ordinary beast become a higher existence. However, Jard's situation was not like that. Jard did not rely on step-by-step cultivation to accumulate merits and obtain a spirit lattice, thus transforming from an ordinary beast into a higher life form. Instead, he relied on submitting to the Demon King and received a gift, which allowed him to ascend to heaven in one step. In short, he was a nouveau riche. Even so, Jard was a life form with the gift of the Tiger Man. All it took was one kick. If a normal child received it, even if they did not die, they would be severely injured. Rin clearly understood this as he watched Jard's foot, which carried the whistling wind, kick towards him. He raised his hand reflexively, prepared to receive a heavy injury. However, this preparation disappeared in the midst of an awe-inspiring shout. "Stop!" Those words were spoken with a power that no one could resist. His powerful words reverberated in the air, clearly reaching the ears of everyone present. In that instant, Jard's foot that was about to kick Rin froze in midair. It was not a reaction based on Jard's own actions. Jard's, without any warning, his. Wah? Jard looked up in shock. Jiufei Niao stared coldly at Jard and spat out the words that were laced with power. "Kneel." Jard's body completely disobeyed his master's will. He bent his body and knelt on the ground. Bang! The overly violent movement caused the ground to emit a muffled sound as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer. Jard's face twitched and a trace of pain and struggle appeared on his face. Then he understood something and glared at God. "What did you do?" Jard's angry roar was met with Jard's cold reply. "Shut up." The words were still laced with power, forcing Jard to close his mouth. Jard's teeth clattered together, causing his face to twist in pain. At the same time, the black-robed men around Jard panicked. What happened? Did that woman do something? It must be that woman's gift. Amidst the chaotic atmosphere, someone among the black-robed men shouted out. Hurry up." The group of black-robed men immediately reacted, and their expressions turned vicious. At this moment, a figure suddenly flashed into the group of black-robed men. Before anyone could react, the figure turned around and used joint skills to grab the wrist of the black-robed man who had just shouted and pressed him to the ground. Bang! With a muffled sound, the black-robed man whose wrist was grabbed was pressed to the ground as if he was being smashed to the ground. He cried out in pain. The group of black-robed men was shocked. They quickly turned around and looked at the center of the crowd. Unbeknownst to them, a slender figure of a young girl had appeared there. "Please don't resist." Her eye spoke softly as he pressed the black-robed man to the ground with an astonishing arm strength that was not like a girl's. "Otherwise, I can't guarantee that I can control my strength so that I won't hurt you." The contrast between her casual appearance and her gentle appearance made the group of black-robed men subconsciously take a few steps back. "You're afraid of such a situation? How dare you come and find trouble with us?" Jiufei Niao turned her head away in disappointment. "If that's the case, all of you kneel down." Under the words that represented dominance, the black-robed men knelt on the ground one by one. Finally, their faces turned pale and they lost the will to resist. "So powerful." Black Rabbit was surprised and happy as he shouted. "Miss Fei Niao and Miss Yao are so powerful." Hearing that, Jiufei Niao accepted it with an elegant smile. Hurai Buyao blinked his eyes as if he was embarrassed and did not know what to do. Under such circumstances, Noah and 16 knights looked at each other and smiled. They relaxed their tense bodies and were ready to jump out at any time. "Young Master Ren." The Black Rabbit jumped to the side of Ren who was sitting on the ground and helped him up. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Ren did not seem to be able to react as he stared blankly at Jiufei Niao and Hurai Buyao. "Black Rabbit, are they the new companions that want to join us?" "Yes." Black Rabbit's tone became happy and light. "Everyone here is an amazing person." While Black Rabbit and Ren were talking, Noah and the others came to Jard who was kneeling on the ground. Jard's body was trembling slightly as if he was struggling. They looked at him from above. "Miss Jiufei Niao." Noah looked at Jiufei Niao. "Do you have a way to control his mind and make him answer our questions honestly?" "Just call me Flying Bird." June Flying Bird said as she crossed her arms and looked at Jard. Where is the child that you kidnapped? Under the power of ancient Flying Bird's mighty light, Jard's mouth trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but answer honestly. They're all locked up in the base. Considering that Black Rabbit might ask to see them, they haven't been killed yet. In an instant, the temperature in the room dropped to freezing point. You said that they haven't been killed yet, right? Noah looked directly at Jard, his dark eyes flashing with a cold light. In other words, your original plan was to kill all those powerless children? That's what I've always done, Jard said with an expression that made him look like he was about to cry out in pain. In order to control other communities, they have always captured their children and used them as hostages to threaten them. However, children are too annoying. They love to cry and make people angry. Therefore, all along as they are captured, they will all be killed without exception. The way they looked at Jard had completely changed. A heavy pressure suddenly filled the room. Chapter 1267. In the box court, no matter where it was, there were generally 3 types of areas. One was the stage area. That was the area that belonged to the territories of the various communities, and was specifically used to host the bestowment game. It was said that some powerful people were able to open up a disc in a different dimension that was specifically used to host the game. However, those people were extremely rare. Therefore, when the general community hosted the bestowment game, they would set up a venue in their own territory. The areas that were used for this purpose were all called the stage area. One was the free area. That was the area that was used to set up commercial facilities and entertainment facilities. Some of these areas were owned by the community in the territory and were thus used. Some were owned by the dominant class, and were rented out to the lower class communities to promote the development of commercial and entertainment industries. As for the other type, it was the residential area. It was used for living, dining, vegetable gardens, farms, and other purposes. In short, it was used for living. Most of these areas were owned by the various communities and were used to set up their bases. As the most powerful community in the Eastern District in the past, Noah and his group heard that the Black Rabbit and Wren's No Name had an extremely vast piece of land in the residential area of the 2105380 Outer Sect. That was the base of No Name. However, now there was only a piece of wasteland and ruins left. As for the Forsgaro that Jard was in the residential area, naturally they also had their own base. In order to save the children in No Name, under the mighty light ability of the ancient Flying Bird, the group was led by Jard involuntarily and arrived at the base of Forsgaro. However, when the group of people arrived at the base of Forsgaro, the scene that appeared in front of them made everyone stunned. They saw that in front of an extremely large mansion, there were people in black robes lying on the ground, their bodies covered in cuts and bruises. Taking a closer look, the place where the black-robed people were lying on the ground was also in an extremely sorry state. The carefully arranged courtyard looked as if it had been burned. Not only were there scorch marks everywhere, there were also puddles of blood. The fountain was destroyed beyond recognition. The trees were smashed into pieces and fell to the ground. Holes filled every corner of the place, proving that there had been a big battle here. On top of that, the members of Forsgaro were lying on the ground, covered in bruises and unconscious. Under the control of ancient Flying Bird's ability, Jard cried out in shock. What's going on? What happened? Not only Jard, but the other black-robed men who were also under the control of the ancient Flying Birds could not help but scream when they saw the sorry state of their base and the bodies of their comrades lying on the ground. There was no other way. It was obvious that Forsgaro had been attacked. This was something inconceivable. One had to know that there were also relevant laws and regulations in the box court. Although these laws and regulations were not as absolute as the rules of the Game of Blessings, when there were powerful law and order defenders in the local area, no one would risk the risk of being banned to commit crimes. And in the box court, under normal circumstances, if there were no accidents, the guardian of law and order would be the leader of the social class. Coincidentally, the ruler of the Eastern District was the strongest ruler of the social classes, White Yiksha. In the face of a celestial, who was a terrifying existence at the forefront of the entire box court, who would dare to commit a crime in the Eastern District. Unless the person escaped from the box court before being caught and never came back. Otherwise, the person would definitely pay the price for committing a crime. Jared could not believe that the base had been attacked while he was not in it. Who the hell is it? Jared screamed like a madman. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Jiao Yuanyao, who was also shocked by the scene before him, gave the order impatiently. Jared looked like a stray dog. Shut up. Jared, who was roaring hysterically, closed his mouth with a force that looked like he was going to break his teeth. Hurai Biao twitched the tip of his nose and said with a keen sense of smell comparable to that of a hunting dog. There's a smell in the air that's obviously different from the people lying on the ground. It's a very strong smell of blood. A smell? Black Rabbit said dumbly. So that means there was only one person who attacked this base. One person. Ancient Flying Bird pointed at the battered and exhausted scene in a daze. One person can destroy a base like this. Rin was also in disbelief. In the outer area of 2105380, Jared's Forsgara was a powerful community that was second to none. Although the methods used to control other communities were extremely despicable and cruel, it was undeniable that this community was definitely ranked in the top 7 in terms of power. How could such a base be destroyed by a single person? If the opponent was really one person, then there's no way it's just a 7-figure person, Rin said with cold sweat dripping down his face. Although it's impossible for it to be a 5-figure person, it's definitely a 6-figure person. A 4-figure person was already at the level of a relatively famous Azura god. Even if a 5-figure person was not as famous as a 4-figure person, there were still Azura gods of different sizes. They were much stronger than normal humans, phantoms, monsters and elves. Therefore Rin did not guess that it was a 5-figure person. After all, although Forsgara was powerful, it was only a 7-figure community at the bottom. To destroy such a community, there was no need for the likes of Azura gods to do anything. Therefore a 6-figure figure was Ren's guess. After understanding what kind of existence attacked his base, Jared's body was also trembling uncontrollably. Noah and 16 knights had already walked into the scene and started to wander around the hellish scene. Noah crouched down and touched the blood on the ground. After feeling the viscosity of the blood, he said, "The blood is still very fresh. It should have happened not long ago. These people look very miserable, but they're still alive." 16 knights put his hands in his pockets and smiled. The attacker probably didn't want to kill them all. Therefore the target is probably not Forsgaro but something else. Black Rabbit. Noah immediately turned his head and looked at Black Rabbit. What about the children in the community? Black Rabbit and Ren were shocked at the same time. Could it be that the opponent was here for the children? Thinking of this, Black Rabbit and Ren's faces showed a hint of anxiety. Just as they were about to rush into the mansion, a group of people ran out of the mansion. It was a group of children. A group of children who were about the same age as Ren. The leader was a little girl with fox-like ears and 2 tails. The moment the little girl saw Black Rabbit and Ren, she immediately shouted, "Sister Black Rabbit, Ren June." Hearing the shout, Black Rabbit and Ren looked over and were immediately overjoyed. Lily. And everyone. It seemed that these children were all no-names children who had been abducted by Forsgaro. Seeing that their companions were safe and sound, Black Rabbit and Ren were overjoyed and quickly went forward. Black Rabbit immediately hugged the fox-like girl named Lily. "Lily, are you all okay?" We're fine." Lily quickly shook her head and said, Someone saved us." As soon as this sentence came out of the girl named Lily's mouth, a black shadow suddenly flew out of the side window of the mansion and shot into the distance. The first to react were Noah and 16 knights. Their eyes focused at the same time and their figures also turned into a black shadow. With a bang, they fiercely stomped on the ground and jumped up to chase after it. Chapter 1268. The faint sound of something breaking through the air echoed softly in the space, like ripples on the surface of the water, setting off a slight airflow. 3 figures, one in front and one behind, flew through the air in a completely different manner, like meteors chasing each other. Their speed was so fast that one could barely see an afterimage flashing through the space, which was quite frightening. The figure in front could not be seen in its entirety. However, the figure looked petite with a pair of black wings on its back, like a shadow flying forward at an extremely fast speed. The figure in the back was Noah. Relying on the magic effect of the necklace called Flight, Noah's figure was also like a meteor, in the slight vibration of the atmosphere, with the whistling sound of the wind, rushing forward violently, without the slightest bit of distance between them. And below the two figures, one in front and one behind chasing each other in the air, there was another figure. That was naturally 16 knights in reverse. This human who could not fly in the true sense of the third universe's speed, was like a cannonball flying on the ground. The buildings had no way to stop this monster who had a terrifying physical ability that even Noah admitted that he could not compare to, but instead became the other's stepping stone. Reversing 16 knights used a terrifying speed and nimble body to fly back and forth between the buildings. Firmly hanging in the air like a meteor, the two silhouettes shot forward explosively. This scene did not know how long it lasted. At a certain moment, the petite figure flying in the air suddenly descended. Seeing this, Noah's eyes flashed, and without any hesitation he bent down and charged down. Coincidentally, 16 knights in reverse was like a bullet shooting out violently. As a result, the three figures fell heavily on the ground at the same time. Dong! Accompanied by a loud sound like a meteor hitting the ground, the whole ground trembled slightly. The three figures that were chasing each other almost fell heavily on the ground at the same time, stirring up a thick cloud of dust, causing the ground to crack inch by inch like a spider web spreading out. Whoosh! A gust of wind whistled past, sweeping away the thick sand and dust that filled the air. Noah and reverse 16 knights stood in a straight line with some distance between them. Their gazes were fixed in front of them. There, a petite figure with her back facing the two, gently floating in the air. Three people, three positions just formed a big triangle. From the perspective of Noah and 16 knights in reverse, it was very clear. She had her back to him and was gently floating in the air. Behind her was a petite figure that looked like a pair of black wings. She had beautiful long hair that reached her waist. That long hair that fluttered in the wind under the sunlight reflected a bright golden light. Her golden hair was golden hair tied with a custom-made ribbon. He was wearing a red leather jacket that looked like a restraining device. Just by looking at his back, one would have two first impressions of him. First, the other party was a young girl. Second, the other party looked quite young. If Noah and 16 knights had not seen the other party's flying ability in the previous chase, no one would believe that such a young girl could destroy a community that was second to none in the outer door area. So the hide-and-seek ends here, right? 16 knights reversed put one of his hands in his pocket, looking sloppy. Hey little brother, are you sure this guy is the one who attacked the tiger? Who knows? Noah spread out his hands. His casual performance was a sharp contrast to 16 knights' sloppy appearance. I only know that the other party does have a strong bloody smell and it's fresh. The implication was that the girl in front of him was undoubtedly the most suspicious. Then what should we do? 16 knights asked as if he already knew the answer, laughing arrogantly. The other party seems to have saved the kids in our community, right? Even if I said no, you wouldn't think so, right? Noah curled his lips. So, for the sake of your companions in the community, shouldn't 16 knights go up and strike up a conversation with our benefactor? Hey, why is it striking up a conversation? 16 knights retorted. I just want to have a friendly chat with the lowly over there. Is that so? Noah suddenly smiled. Then how do you want to communicate? That's right. 16 knights revealed a provocative smile. In short, that lowly doesn't seem to be simple. Depending on the situation, we should consider if we should go up and fight. Hearing this, the petite girl who had her back facing Noah and 16 knights slowly raised her head and turned around. The next moment, a stern expression that didn't match her age and a pair of bright red eyes that seemed to suck people in as long as they looked at each other, were imprinted in Noah and 16 knights' eyes. Looking at the young girl's face, which was so beautiful that it made people hold their breaths, and the temperament that she exuded was extraordinary, Noah and 16 knights raised their eyebrows at the same time. 16 knights of reverse return cried out happily. Doesn't she have a delicious face? Delicious. Noah was speechless. I say, 16 knights, don't tell me you're thinking of eating her? Who doesn't want to? 16 knights said as if it was a matter of course. With such a delicious lowly face, who wouldn't want to taste it? No. Noah was speechless. Forgive me for not agreeing. In front of an unknown person, Noah and 16 knights teased each other as if there was no one else around. However, his carefree attitude made the cute and petite girl smile faintly. That smile was enough to make people's eyes light up. Soon after, the petite young girl spat out a mature voice. Not only are you able to easily catch up to me even when I'm flying at full speed, you're also able to face me fearlessly despite knowing that I have the ability to annihilate that lowly tiger human community. It seems that you all are rather capable humans. After saying this, the smile on the petite girl's face suddenly disappeared. If you have the ability, you can choose a good community to join. Why join No Name? Noah and 16 Knights looked at each other, then shrugged at the same time. What? Is joining No Name that strange? Noah said sarcastically. The so-called uniqueness is related to being a maverick. Since you think that we are not normal humans, then it's not strange for us to make a choice that normal humans would not make, right? That's how it is, blonde lowly. 16 Knights clapped his hands and said helplessly. Speaking of which, did you come because you look down on No Name? Then why save the brats in No Name? The petite girl didn't say anything, but after looking at Noah and 16 Knights, she closed her eyes. Look around. Noah and 16 Knights were slightly startled, but they immediately looked around as they were told. What entered the eyes of Noah and 16 Knights in reverse was a wasteland. A ruin that seemed to have gone through hundreds of years, completely turned into a wasteland and lost all signs of life. The seemingly flat white road was buried by sand and dust. One by one, the wooden buildings began to decay and collapse. The trees on both sides of the road were white and withered, abandoned at the side of the road. No matter how you looked at it, it was a wasteland. What's wrong? Noah looked around, then looked at the girl. What's so strange about it? You don't know where this is, right? The girl was silent for a while, then with a self-deprecating tone, said, Then let me tell you. The girl looked straight at Noah. This is the base of No Name. Chapter 1269. For a moment, Noah and 16 Knights could not understand the meaning of the girl's words. After he understood, not to mention 16 Knights, the look in Noah's eyes completely changed. From Black Rabbit, Noah did hear about the current situation of No Name. A few years ago, this community was still the largest force in the eastern district of the city. In the game of the Demon King's Gift, not only were all their core companions taken away, even their base was turned into ruins. However, at that time, Noah thought that the so-called ruins referred to the aftermath of the battle between the former members of No Name and the Demon King. Just like the battle between Noah and Doni, it caused a terrifying crater with a diameter of thousands of meters to appear in Italy, causing Italy to pay a shocking loss of more than 15 billion euros. However, if this was the base of No Name, then it was not as simple as the aftermath of the battle. The buildings here did not have any traces of deliberate destruction. The ground did not suffer much damage either. The entire ruins, rather than saying that it was the aftermath of the battle, it was better to say that it was simply abandoned by the erosion of time. However, before it was called No Name, undoubtedly this community was still a force that spread across several levels, and was the largest force in the entire Eastern District. And the time when that glory finally ended was only 3 years ago. In other words, in just 3 short years, this base became a ruin that was eroded by hundreds of years of time. What is going on? Do you understand what kind of community you have joined? The girl's tone was full of self-mockery. This community that people call No Name has not only lost its flag, name, companions, and all the people, things that can exist in the form of a community. The girl raised her eyes and stared at Noah and 16 Knights. Joining this community means that if you want to rebuild it, then you must take back the flag and name from the hands of the Demon King who caused all this. That is a terrifying path of thorns. Even so, do you think it is okay? That was right. After joining No Name, the real problem wasn't that they didn't have a flag, a name, or even an extremely poor situation. Instead, it was that they had to face the Demon King who had once stolen everything from this community. Even the community that was once known as the largest in the entire East District could not match up to the culprit behind the ruins. This was the cruel truth. In this regard, Noah and 16 Knights looked at the girl at the same time. The expression in their eyes did not waver at all. Seeing the look in his eyes, the girl understood. The 2 men in front of him had no intention of going back on their words. Why? The girl's tone was more or less a little anxious. Don't you understand how terrifying the Demon King is to be able to cause all this? I understand, of course I understand, 16 Knights said arrogantly as if he was looking down on others. But if that's not the case, then there's nothing about this community that attracts me. This sentence stunned the young girl on the spot. Listen carefully, blonde lowly, 16 Knights spread out his hands and smiled from the bottom of his heart. One of my life's creeds is that I must be frank when I'm moved. Frank when I'm moved? The girl looked at 16 Knights in a daze. After hesitating for a moment, she asked with uncertainty. You mean to say that the battle with the Demon King will make you feel moved? Isn't that a matter of course? 16 Knights sneered. No matter how you look for trouble or how you look for trouble in the end, you just have to wave your hand to solve the problem. In order to not kill, you have to deliberately suppress your strength. It's really boring. Creatures like humans, it's because they can't touch the sky that they want to build airplanes. It's because they can't touch the stars that they want to leave the earth and go to the universe, 16 Knights said with a carefree laugh that came from the bottom of his heart. Now there's a demon king that I may not be able to touch even if I use all my strength. My heart has long been boiling and my head is starting to burn. For the first time in my life I feel that there's something that I need to pursue and desire. Isn't that enough to move me? The girl was speechless for a moment. Then she cast her gaze on Noah and said in a deep voice. What about you? Why are you so insistent on joining No Name? For a moment Noah fell into silence. However, in the next second Noah said faintly. I want to help them. What? The girl couldn't believe her ears and said in a daze. But help them. That's right. Noah sighed and expressed his thoughts. In words that you can understand, that is, the community that I was in before encountered a situation that was almost no different from this community. Speaking of this, Noah couldn't help but think of the guild that he grew up in. The guild that was called Fairy Tale. Because we encountered a powerful enemy that was almost no different from the Demon King, in order to protect our companions, my guild. In other words, the founder of the community used a powerful force to freeze all of our companions in a world where even time stopped. Noah's voice became faintly discernible. However, in order to release all of our frozen companions, it would take a very long time. During this time, only a few members who weren't very strong were left in the community. Under such circumstances, with their strength, I don't think they could continue to maintain the prosperity of the community, right? Noah said slowly. But even so, I believe that they will definitely protect our guild, protect our community, protect our common home and wait for our return. And Black Rabbit is the same. In order to protect this home that could bring her companions back, she fought so hard. With her own strength, she supported the entire community for 3 years. Noah's gaze shot towards the girl like an arrow. So I can't sit back and do nothing. I want to help this community. If the purpose of this community is to protect the home that could bring back our past companions, Noah said word by word, then I will definitely not be stingy in lending my strength. This was the reason why Noah agreed to Black Rabbit's invitation to join her community. Noah believed that his companions in Fairy Tale would definitely be like Black Rabbit, desperately protecting the home that allowed them to return to. Thinking of his companions and Black Rabbit, Noah couldn't sit back and do nothing. Moreover, in Black Rabbit's community, there were all children whose parents had been taken away. These children were similar to the cursed child in Fairy Tale, in the world of the Black Bullet. Even if it wasn't as tragic as the fate of the cursed child in Fairy Tale, once they lost the protection of the community, these children would be like them, completely without support. So this community called No Name touched Noah's heart. The girl named Black Rabbit's determination to protect her companion's home also touched Noah's heart. So Noah wanted to join No Name. Even if you are the Demon King, so what? If you want to hurt my companions, then show me the determination to fight with your lives on the line. Noah declared loudly. This time I will definitely protect my companions. The strong determination echoed in the space along with the words, causing 16 Knights' expression to change. The girl was finally speechless. After a long time the girl laughed bitterly. You are humans with strong hearts, worthy of respect. After saying this, the girl's mature and heavy voice actually had some relief in relief. With your help, this community should be able to have hope again, right? The girl turned around and said softly, I'll leave Black Rabbit and run to you. After saying this, the girl flapped the black wings behind her back and flew towards the horizon. This time neither Noah nor 16 knights chased after her. Instead they watched the girl leave until she disappeared from sight. What do you mean? 16 knights reversal asked in a bored tone. I thought something interesting would happen, so I chased after her. In the end she was just here to talk about life? That child seemed to know Black Rabbit and seemed to have special feelings for this community. Noah frowned. Did she attack Jard's community to save the child in no name? This was also a puzzle. So Noah was more or less concerned. That girl, who was she? Chapter 1270. This is. In No Name's base, Juo Asaka and Hirai Hiroyuki looked at the barren ruins in front of them and sucked in a breath of cold air. Is this really because of the battle with the Demon King? Kiyoshi's majestic voice was shaken. No matter how you look at it, this is a natural collapse after a long period of time, right? Moreover, there are no signs of life here. Undoubtedly, this is an abandoned human residence. There should be wandering beasts nearby, right? Hibuyaichi was also shocked. What is going on? Looking at Kiyoshi and Hibuyaichi's expressions of disbelief, Kuroto, Ren, and the group of children in the community all had gloomy expressions. This is not something strange, Kuroto said with a complicated expression. To be able to defeat all of our companions who developed the community into the largest power in the East District, Kuroto is not surprised at all. Moreover, the opponent did this on purpose. Ren said in a low voice. To turn this land into what it is now, to show the world his horror, the so-called Demon King is in existence who naturally enjoys this feeling, right? When holding a large-scale game of grace, those who had the ability would basically prepare another game stage, or simply prepare a game disc in another dimension to prevent the powerful forces from causing damage to the box. However, the Demon King was not someone who would be kind enough to protect the territory of the opponent he wanted to play with. After all, the so-called Demon King was in existence who did not care about the wishes of the participants, and used the organizer's authority to force others to participate in their game. They existed to enjoy the horror of others. Kiyoshi and Hibuyaichi seemed to understand this point, and their expressions became complicated. Under the influence of Kiyoshi and Hibuyaichi, the group of No Name's mood became even more gloomy, and a heavy atmosphere filled the surroundings. However, this will be a thing of the past very soon. Rin hurriedly comforted. Now, with the participation of Mr. Noah, Mr. 16 Knights, Miss Fei Yao, and Miss Yao, our community will definitely be able to get out of this predicament and develop better. That's right. Black Rabbit's voice also became cheerful, comforting everyone. Wasn't Jared Gasper also easily dealt with by everyone? Hearing this, the expressions of the many children led by Rin did become clear. After rescuing the children in No Name, Jian Fei Yao used her power to manipulate Jard and the members of his community who had done many evil deeds to go to White Yiksha. In order to control the other communities, Jard had kidnapped the children of the other communities and killed them all. This was a very serious crime. If Jard had managed to escape before he was banned, there would be nothing they could do about it. However, under Jian Fei Yao's control, Jard had no chance of escaping at all. In the end, under the escort of No Name's group, White Yiksha took over and punished him. According to White Yiksha's words, this evil fellow should at least be deprived of his gift and be punished by turning back into an ordinary beast without any rationality. However, after learning that Jard had eaten all the children he killed in order to destroy evidence, White Yiksha angrily took action and personally stripped Jard of his gift. He dismembered Jard, who had turned back into an ordinary beast, and prepared to sell him to a restaurant to become someone's meal. The so-called evil has its retribution. This should be the situation, right? Thinking of this, everyone felt a wave of relief. Black Rabbit is right. Jian Fei Yao's tone returned to its majestic state and she smiled slightly. I was already prepared to start anew. If I gave up because of this, wouldn't I have come here for nothing? First, let's start with reviving the community. Hiroyuki also nodded and looked around. If these lands can be restored to vitality and used for planting and grazing, then the community's business situation will be much better. In this world, because of the existence of the convenient power of bestowment, the development of technology was not very obvious. Therefore, if they wanted to revive the barren land, they would need a lot of manpower and financial resources. However, once the land could be revived, the community's development would indeed be improved by many levels after planting, grazing, and other operations. As the largest community in the East District in the past, No Name had nothing but a lot of land. We still have very few members now, and most of them are children who don't have high labor power. 16 Knights scratched her head. So let's not think about this for now. Let's start with the gift game. Black Rabbit, Jian Fei Niao, Hurai, Hiroyuki, Ren, Lily, and everyone else present all nodded. Looking at his companions, Noah opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he did not know what to think and changed his mind. Actually, if they wanted to revive the land, Noah had a way. In Noah's treasure vault, there were countless treasures and items related to the god of fertility, the god of harvest, the god of life, and the god of earth that were related to the vitality of the land. Using those treasures and items, if they wanted to revive the land, it would not take much effort. The money needed to buy seedlings and graze livestock and so on, Noah could also provide an unlimited amount of money. As for labor, even if No Name was lacking, Noah still had a way. Don't forget, in the previous world, Noah obtained a lot of summoning books that could summon monsters. Using those summoning books, Noah could summon a large number of Gorum that would not be tired, did not need to eat, and did not need to rest. In addition, Noah also had items that could increase the harvest of crops and shorten the growth time of crops. In just a month's time, he could increase the productivity of No Name to the same level as before the Demon King's attack. However, for No Name, this was undoubtedly not a good thing. In this community, the only ones who had real combat power were Noah, 16 Knights Reversal, Black Rabbit, Juan Fei Niao, and Hurai Hiroyuki. As the leader, although Ren heard that he had the ability to participate in the Game of Grace, his ability was not high, and he still needed to work on managing the community. This led to No Name needing Black Rabbit's income to support it. In this way, if No Name in a situation where they lacked combat power, but their business was comparable to before, and obtained a lot of wealth and resources, it would definitely attract many people's greed. If these people were to challenge them in a fair game of grace and attempt to obtain the wealth and resources they coveted, then it would be fine. The problem was that there was no guarantee that people like Jard would not exist. When the time comes, if the other party found an opportunity to attack No Name's base when Noah and the others were not around, then what should they do? Therefore, before they had enough power to protect everything, rapid development was not a good thing. Of course, Noah could also summon a large number of monsters to protect No Name. However, in that case, No Name would have to rely on Noah alone to deal with it. Noah did not mind. However, the others would definitely have a grudge against him and might even have a sense of inferiority. He still had to take care of his companions' emotions. In view of this, it was better not to put everything on himself for the time being. However, there were some things that Noah felt that it was better to clarify. At that moment, Noah moved closer to Black Rabbit, lowered his voice and asked, "Today, the person who saved the children and destroyed Jard's community, do you know him?" Chapter 1271. When Noah leaned close to Black Rabbit's ear and asked Black Rabbit, the strong breath from the opposite sex made the innocent Black Rabbit's face slightly blush. However, after hearing the content of Noah's words, Black Rabbit's expression froze, and the blush on her face was replaced by gloominess. Because of the kidnapping by Jard's community, the children in No Name were rescued by the girl. Therefore, when Noah and 16 Knights chased after her, Black Rabbit and Ren had already asked the children, represented by Lily, about the appearance of the person who saved them. After that, Black Rabbit and Ren confirmed the full appearance of the girl from Noah and 16 Knights. After confirming, their expressions became somewhat complicated. Coupled with the confrontation with the girl, her words and actions revealed that she had a special relationship with No Name, which made Noah certain that the girl must have some kind of relationship with No Name. Now, Black Rabbit's performance proved that Noah's guess was correct. Under such circumstances, Black Rabbit lowered her head slightly and spoke softly. "That lady is called Letitia, a purebred vampire known as the Knights of Box Court." Knights of Box Court. This title was unique to the vampires who lived in the Box Court. The reason was simple. Since ancient times, the vampires' duty was to protect the entire Box Court, and they had put in a lot of effort. It was also mentioned before that in the Box Court, there was a curtain that could cover the entire city. The meaning of the existence of the curtain was to allow races like the vampires who could not be directly exposed to the sun to exist. With the curtain, the vampires could live freely in the box court, and even if the sun shone on them, they would not be harmed. It was precisely because of this that the box court with the curtain was the only city where the vampires could live under the sun. In view of this, since the beginning of the history of the box court, the vampires had always been the guardians of the box court, protecting the only city where they could live under the sun. Therefore, the vampires were known as the Knights of Box Court. This was because when they entered the box court, Black Rabbit had already mentioned it in the introduction of the curtain above the city. Therefore, Noah was not surprised. What really surprised Noah was the other term that Black Rabbit mentioned. Pure breed. That child is a purebred vampire. Black Rabbit had also mentioned this aspect of knowledge. The so-called purebred referred to the gift at the beginning of the tree of life. There was a law to the evolution of all living things. As for the system tree, it was used to represent the evolutionary relationships between species. From aquatic to terrestrial. From low to high. From simple to complex. The evolution of life was thus linked together in the form of a tree, forming an entire history of life evolution. Purebred meant that they were at the beginning of this evolutionary history. It was almost no different from terms such as without impurities, pure and unsullied, and the most orthodox. It was a special existence that could be called separately even within the same species. Of course, this was not the most important thing. Most importantly, almost all of the species that could be described as pure breeds had godheads. If one were to say that spirituality was the ranking of life forms, then divinity was the highest ranking of life forms. It did not refer to those natural gods themselves, but to the gift that could transform an individual into the highest level of a species. For example, if a snake was given divinity, the snake would transform into a snake god. For example, if a person was given divinity, the person would transform into an immortal or a child prodigy. For example, if a ghost was given divinity, the ghost would transform into a ghost god that could shake heaven and earth. With divinity, not only could one evolve to the highest level of a species, but even all of one's other gifts could be strengthened, producing an explosive qualitative improvement. Therefore, in the box court, many communities would first set obtaining divinity as an important goal in order to achieve their own goals. Even ordinary wild beasts would transform into beast gods after obtaining divinity. One could imagine how terrifying the advantages of possessing divinity were. And almost all of the existences that could be called pure breeds had divinity. That was what Noah was surprised by. In this regard, Black Rabbit revealed a somewhat proud smile. That's right, Letitia-sama was such a pure ghost with divinity. In the distant past, she was also one of the demon kings that wreaked havoc in the box court. Later on, she joined Black Rabbit's community and became Black Rabbit Sr. This time Noah was even more surprised. You're saying that the child called Letitia was not only a demon king, but also a member of this community? Noah was not the only one who was surprised. Everyone else was surprised as well. I see, the original demon king? 16 Nights Reversal said this with excitement and annoyance. Damn, if I knew earlier, I wouldn't have let her escape so easily. The one who saved those children was actually such an amazing existence. Jiu Fei Niao exclaimed. No wonder she could destroy a community that was second to none here. If she was a demon king, then it wouldn't be strange. So, there was a demon king member in this community in the past. Haruhito Hikari raised the three-furred cat in his arms. That's amazing. Yes, Letitia-sama is the best. Black Rabbit nodded, then was shocked and shouted at 16 Nights Reversal, Jiu Fei Niao, and Haruhito Hikari, who appeared around him without him knowing. You mean, when did everyone get here? Unfortunately, no one paid attention to Black Rabbit's ridicule and fell into deep thought. I've been wondering why Letitia would save the children here. Jiu Fei Niao suddenly said. Now the reason is clear. Since she was a former companion, then it's not strange. Haruhito Hikari nodded. He appeared at the right time. But why would the blonde loli appear here? 16 Nights Reversal asked curiously. Since she's a member of this community, then it means that she was a companion taken away by the Demon King 3 years ago? I'm more concerned about why the girl called Letitia didn't come back. Noah shook his head. Since she's a companion of this community and saved the children, why did she leave without permission and have no intention of coming back? Actually, I've been looking for an opportunity to tell everyone recently. Black Rabbit was silent for a while and immediately gathered his courage. After being taken away by the Demon King, Letitia-sama seemed to have been traded as an item many times and fell into the hands of Thousand Eyes. Thousand Eyes? Noah was slightly taken aback. Isn't that the community where Byakuya is? Yes. Black Rabbit nodded heavily. Then recently, Thousand Eyes seems to be holding a gift game, and the prize of that gift game is Letitia-sama. Hearing this, everyone more or less understood. In other words, the reason the vampire named Letitia is here is because she is the prize of Thousand Eyes? Noah frowned and there was a hint of disgust in his expression. Using people as prizes? Isn't it good? 16 Knights Reversal grinned and said to Black Rabbit. You want us to participate in the gift game and take back the blonde loli called Letitia? Yes. Black Rabbit quickly nodded. Letitia-sama is a very important companion of ours and she's a purebred demon and even a demon king. If such Letitia-sama can return to the community, then our community's strength can rise to another level, right? Ju and Asaka continued Black Rabbit's words. This is indeed a good opportunity. Then, Hirai Hiroyuki raised his hand. Who's going to participate? The scene suddenly became cold. Black Rabbit trembled as he spoke. Isn't everyone participating together? Suddenly, except for Noah, the other three people all refuted. Why? That's not interesting at all, right? Same. Black Rabbit was dumbfounded. This group of problematic children. Chapter 1272. Night slowly descended. In No Name's base of operations it was a barren wasteland. The dry wind blew like a desert, sweeping up some sand and dust, spreading along with the night. The surroundings were gradually covered by darkness. Buildings that seemed to have gone through a long period of time seemed to have returned to their original world. Combined with the appearance, it gave off a somewhat gloomy feeling, making people wonder if this was a haunted house. However, if one walked along the stone path in the ruins for a while, then one would gradually come to a place where empty houses with relatively intact appearances stood side by side. This was the residential area of the members of No Name. Taking a closer look, not far from the residential area, there was a clear flowing waterway that looked like a river. Around the waterway, the children belonging to No Name were laughing and laughing, while using small wooden buckets to collect water from the waterway, and transported it into the other building in a good mood. In today's No Name, compared to the past, the number of buildings that were still in use was pitifully small. However, as the largest power in the East District in the past, the buildings in this community were still quite grand. Not to mention the others, there were currently 2 buildings with lights shining out from the windows. One was a building that was the size of a hotel. That was the headquarters of No Name. According to the tradition of this community, those who were able to participate in the bestowment game would obtain a rank, starting from the lowest rank, and the higher the rank, the higher the floor they would live in. However, now, because of the lack of manpower and the inconvenience of moving around, no matter if it was Black Rabbit or Ren, they didn't want to insist on this tradition, so they let everyone choose freely. In addition, there was another building that was the other building. The other building was where more than 100 children of No Name lived. Originally, the other building had other uses, but now, because of Wei En's problem, the children of the community all lived there. Because the community needed to rely on those who were able to participate in the bestowment game, no matter which community it was, there seemed to be a rule that required those who were unable to participate in the bestowment game to support the private lives of the participants, even to the extent of sacrificing themselves for them. That was why the children in No Name came to the waterway to draw water for their meals, washing up, cleaning, and so on. After coming out of the gymnasium, Noah first glanced at those children who were laughing and chatting happily. Then he came to the side of the waterway, squatted down, and put his hand into the cold water. I didn't expect that even water is a very precious resource in Box Court. To be more precise, it should be said that the Eastern District was originally an area that was not very rich in water resources. In the north, south, east, west, and north of Hakata, each area had its own unique characteristics. There was an abundance of snow in the Northern District. There was a large river that flowed through the city in the Southern District. Therefore, the Southern and Northern Districts were regions with relatively abundant water resources. On the other hand, There wasn't much precipitation in the Eastern District. There were very few communities that could store enough water. They could only set up waterways in the city and bring in water from the rivers outside. However, only a community with some influence who could afford to use it could use it. In the Eastern District, in the 7 digits of the outer gate, many communities could only go outside the city to draw water. Water resources were considered quite precious. Before Noah and the others came, the children in No Name also needed to go outside the city to draw water. But now with Noah here, why would they need to worry about water? Therefore, Noah took out a water droplet that could produce unlimited water from his treasury and let Black Rabbit put it in the reservoir. It was said that in the past, the reservoir also had the gift of producing unlimited water, but that was no longer there. Therefore, Black Rabbit, who obtained the water droplet, had a face full of excitement. He hurriedly brought the water droplet to the reservoir and opened the water door of the reservoir, allowing the water to flow through the waterway that led to the gymnasium for the people in No Name to use. Just like this, step by step, little by little, I'll contribute to the community. Noah muttered to himself. If I take on all the problems and work in one go, even if the others don't say it verbally, they will definitely hold grudges against me for being unable to do anything. Saying this, Noah raised his head again and looked at the children who were laughing and playing while drawing water. He couldn't help but smile. It was also at this time that a voice sounded from behind Noah. Mr. Noah's mood seems to be very good. Hearing this voice, Noah was startled at first, but he didn't turn his head around and directly spoke. Black Rabbit? Yes. Black Rabbit responded energetically and came to Noah's side. He also squatted down and put one of his hands into the water, revealing a comfortable expression. This water is really comfortable. It's cool and clean. If I sell it outside, I might be able to earn quite a bit. Up to you, Noah responded casually. Compared to this water, I want to restore the fields here. It's really a waste to leave such a large piece of land unutilized. Huh. Black Rabbit's long ears perked up and looked at Noah with a bright expression. Mr. Noah, do you have a way to restore the land here? Well, sort of, Noah said perfunctorily. However, there are still some problems that need to be solved first. Let me think about it before implementing it. Understood. Black Rabbit wasn't disappointed. Instead, his pretty face was filled with hope. It's really great to be able to meet Mr. Noah. Not only are you strong, but you can also make Lord White Yikshaw want to rope you in. You also helped us solve the problem of water and land. Black Rabbit really doesn't know how to thank Mr. Noah. As for me, I'm just doing something that's similar to self-satisfaction. I don't deserve your thanks. Noah shook his head. Moreover, 16th Knight's strength isn't weaker than my current strength. Fei Miao and Yao's gifts also have considerable potential. If you want to thank, you should thank them together, right? Yes, Miss Fei Miao and Miss Yao. When we go to the bathhouse to take a bath later, Black Rabbit will thank them properly. Black Rabbit clenched his fist tightly with an inspirational look. Mr. 16th Knight seems to have something to discuss with young Master Ren. Therefore, Black Rabbit will also thank him afterward. 16th Knight. Noah narrowed his eyes slightly and suddenly smiled. It seems that guy also has his own ideas about how this community should develop next. Huh? Black Rabbit was stunned and asked in confusion. What does that mean? It means literally. Noah laughed. Since that guy will go to the leader of the community to discuss something, then he should have some ideas. That's what I think. Is that so? Black Rabbit tilted his head. Black Rabbit feels that Mr. 16th Knight doesn't seem to be thinking about anything. That's because you haven't seen through his sloppy appearance. Noah curled his lips. Although it's just my intuition, I feel that guy doesn't only know how to wave his fists. His brain shouldn't be bad either. Is that so? Black Rabbit looked even more confused. Why would Mr. Noah have such an intuition? Who knows? Noah lowered his head and looked at the clear water reflecting the moonlight in the waterway and said, perhaps, people who have fought each other with their fists would have such an intuition? At least Noah didn't think that 16th Knight, the arrogant guy who did things his own way, would talk to Ren for no reason. Just like how Noah had ideas about the land and water in No Name, 16th Knight must have some ideas about the future development of this community. No matter what, Noah was still looking forward to the plan that 16th Knight would come up with to develop the community. However, unlike me who struggled in all kinds of deceitful regimes and filthy societies, that guy shouldn't have relied on his knowledge and talent instead of experience, right? Chapter 1273. Just like that, the first night in the courtyard passed by very slowly. In one of the rooms in No Name, Noah woke up due to the warm morning sunlight shining into the room through the window. When he came to the courtyard where gods and Buddhas walked everywhere and divine beasts were as numerous as dogs, Noah did not suffer any difficulties that were worth tiring him out on the bed and sleeping so hard that he could not wake up. After all, even if there were so many bug-level existences in the courtyard in the lowest 7-digit level, it was impossible to encounter them all the time. To be able to meet a white yiksha on the first day was already something to be surprised about. As for Jard and the others, they were not even considered troublesome and could only be considered as a pastime. Therefore, after Noah woke up, he only stretched and did not have any intention of continuing to sleep. However, when Noah stretched his body, he immediately felt that something was wrong. The sudden sense of dissonance caused Noah to stop stretching. He tilted his head and after a moment of confusion he finally understood where the dissonance came from. At that moment Noah lifted the blanket, but he didn't see the familiar scene that he had imagined. What's going on? Noah frowned slightly and looked around. Where's Aster? In the past, in the morning, Aster would usually transform into his human form and crawl into Noah's bed. However, today not only did Aster not crawl into Noah's bed, he also disappeared without a trace. After searching the entire bed but not finding Aster, Noah's frown deepened. Why isn't he here? Noah clearly remembered that before going to bed, he had indeed placed Aster, who had transformed into a small sword, on the bed. Now, since the small silver sword had disappeared, it proved that Aster should have transformed into his human form. However, after transforming into his human form, Aster did not crawl into Noah's bed and even disappeared without a trace? This was something that had never happened before. Knock, knock, knock. Just as Noah wanted to use the spirit contract between him and Aster to find out where Aster was, there was a knock on the door. Noah came back to his senses and looked at the door. Please come in. As soon as Noah finished speaking, a somewhat nervous voice sounded. Oh, sorry for disturbing you. As he said this, Noah's door was opened. The next moment, a young girl with fox ears and a fox tail wearing a Japanese-style apron that matched her short height entered Noah's eyes. You are... Noah had an impression of this fox-eared girl. I remember that your name is Lily, right? Is Lord Noah. Lily revealed a nervous expression and bowed to Noah in fear and trepidation. My name is Lily and I'm part of the senior group in this community. I'm in charge of the daily lives of the participants. Is that so? Noah scratched his cheek. Although I'm very grateful to you, you don't have to be nervous. I won't make things difficult for you. Yes, I understand. Although Lily said so, there was still a slight nervousness in her expression. It wasn't that Noah looked scary, but this child was obviously not good at dealing with strangers. After all, Noah joined No Name only yesterday. Understanding this, Noah could only touch his nose and change the topic. What? Do you need something from me? No. That. Lily pushed a cart in from the side. I'm here to deliver breakfast to Lord Noah. Taking a closer look, there was indeed some breakfast on the cart. And it was quite rich. This made Noah a little surprised. Hey Lily, why is the breakfast so rich? Noah asked in confusion. I remember that this community shouldn't be very rich, right? Not only was it not very rich, the community of No Name had lost its name, lost its flag and even lost its core members. All that was left was a group of children who didn't have the ability to participate in the bestowment game. They had already reached the point of destitution. Although they barely survived by relying on Black Rabbit's refereeing, there were more than 100 mouths to feed. Even if they were children who didn't have a big appetite, everyone had to live a life of intermittent meals. It was because he understood this situation that Noah was surprised. In response, Lily smiled shyly and said, "It's not that big of a deal. These breakfasts are all made from the plants that can be harvested from the vegetable garden, so there's no problem." Vegetable garden? Noah was stunned. But the land here hasn't recovered yet, right? Yes, but we have reclaimed a small piece of land behind the main hall for everyone to cultivate together. Lily's tone started to become slightly more fluent, but her expression was a little downcast. If the other land hasn't lost its vitality, then it can be used to raise livestock, and it can also be used to open up a very vast farmland like before. Although no name had been destroyed by the Demon King, the territory was still preserved. Noah heard that in the past the number of residents living here was enough to rival a city. From this, one could imagine how vast the territory was to allow a community of that scale to maintain their livelihood. It was because of this that it was very difficult to revive such a large piece of land. And for Noah, reviving the land was secondary. The most important thing was to take care of the emotions of his companions. However, Lily's words made Noah more or less understand. I see there's no need to restore all of it at once. Can't we restore a part of it first? Even Lily and the others had reclaimed a small vegetable garden behind the main hall. Then Noah only needed to restore a small part of the land first so that his companions in the community had the ability to take care of and protect it. It didn't need to be done by Noah alone. Wouldn't that be enough? He didn't even think of such a simple logic. Noah was really too smart for his own good. Thank you, Lily. Noah couldn't help but pat Lily's head. You've really helped a lot. Lily was startled at first, but when she reacted, her face turned red. Although I don't know what's going on, it's good to be able to help. Saying so, Lily was embarrassed by Noah's pat on the head, but at the same time her pair of foxtails kept swinging. She seemed to be in a very good mood. This child is quite cute. Noah, who felt that something dangerous was about to sprout in his heart, smiled embarrassedly. Then he remembered Aster's matter and quickly asked Lily. Oh right, Lily, did you see a girl with very beautiful silver hair about the same age as you? Silver hair. Lily blinked and then she remembered something. I think I did see her. Is that so? Noah took a deep breath and asked. Then where is she? Oh. Lily made a gesture of recalling. I remember that she seemed to have gone in the direction of the bathhouse. Really? Noah nodded. Then I'll go look for her first. Lily, please push the breakfast to the discussion room. I'll go eat later. After saying that, Noah directly left the room and walked in the direction of the bathhouse. At this time Lily finally reacted and panicked. Oh no, Sir Noah can't go now. However, when Lily was panicking, Noah had already disappeared at the end of the corridor, leaving Lily standing there in a daze. Originally, in No Name, where even getting water was a difficult task, the existence of the bathhouse was equivalent to a dispensable place. Whether it was Black Rabbit or Run, there was no way for them to extravagantly use the water that they painstakingly obtained from outside the city to take a bath in the bathhouse. However, after Noah guaranteed the water source, the bathhouse was opened yesterday. Noah also enjoyed himself in the bathhouse yesterday. Based on yesterday's memory, Noah arrived at the entrance of the bathhouse. After arriving here, Noah could faintly feel the connection between him and Aster. Noah finally let out a sigh of relief and directly opened the door of the bathhouse. Aster, where did you run to? Before he could finish his sentence, Noah's breath caught in his throat and he was stunned. Chapter 1274. History is always surprisingly similar. When Noah opened the door of the bathhouse and saw the situation inside, this was the first thought that flashed through his mind. Because, undoubtedly, it was not the first time he had encountered such a thing, Noah still encountered a surprisingly similar plot. In the bathhouse, everyone who suddenly heard the sound of the door being opened made such a puzzled sound. Then they all turned their heads and looked at the door. As a result, Noah and the three girls in the room looked at each other. At this moment, Noah's breathing stopped. At this moment, the breathing of the three girls also stopped. The four of them stared at each other in a daze, causing a strange silence to pervade the surroundings. Of course, if it was just a meeting, then it would definitely not make both sides react like this. The problem was, this was a bathhouse. Then what the people who came here usually did, the answer was obvious. Noah almost couldn't help but cast his gaze on the three girls in the bathhouse. The first thing that was imprinted in Noah's eyes was the skin that was so white that it made people feel dazzled. That was the skin of the three girls, Black Rabbit, Jiu Yuanfei and Huai Buyao, who were completely naked. Then Noah took in all three of the delicate bodies. Among the three girls, Black Rabbit's figure was undoubtedly the best. Undoubtedly, at first glance she was only about 16 or 17 years old, but the fullness and well-developed legs in front of her formed an ideal figure that had not collapsed at all. It was definitely not an exaggeration to say that it was protruding forward and backward. Jiao Yuanfei's figure was not as bewitching as Black Rabbit's, but it could definitely attract the attention of any healthy man. Although Jiao Yuanfei had the temperament of a young lady, in fact in terms of age this girl was only 15 years old. For a 15-year-old girl, her well-developed figure was fully displayed in front of Noah, and it also made people feel suffocated. As for Huai Biao, compared to the previous two, he lacked the ups and downs that matched his age. However, Haruhi Masaki's figure was slender and balanced. His posture was also very graceful. Even if he looked a little immature, his collarbone and lines were quite attractive. Who could say that such a gentle and quiet girl didn't have any charm? Even if it was Noah, he would not be able to go against his conscience and say that he would not have any evil thoughts after seeing such a delicate body. In such a situation, three perfect, beautiful and gentle bodies were completely displayed in front of Noah, making Noah stunned. And when the person who saw it reacted in such a manner, the person who saw it naturally fell into a state of complete paralysis and couldn't react in time. A strange silence still pervaded the entire place. As a result, no matter if it was Noah, Black Rabbit, Jito Asuka or Haruhito Masaki, none of them paid any attention to the fifth person present. That was until the fifth one spoke. In the corner, the sword spirit girl, who was also in a state of nakedness, but wearing a pair of black knee socks, spoke with an expressionless face. "I am quite unhappy with your sudden behavior of ignoring me." This sentence completely broke the silence of the scene. Black Rabbit and Jito Asuka's pretty face instantly turned red. Although Haruhito Masaki's face was not as exaggerated as Black Rabbit and Jito Asuka's, but his pretty face was also stained with a blush. The three girls almost subconsciously raised their hands and blocked in front of their bodies, covering the important parts of their bodies. Yeah. Black Rabbit hugged his chest and screamed with a red face. "You are still looking?" Jito Asuka also hugged her chest and shouted in embarrassment. "Get out." At this moment, following Jito Asuka's words, an invisible force like a viscous liquid instantly covered Noah's entire body. It was Jito Asuka's gift, Aura of Might. The power to control others, along with the words, was used on Noah's body. Unfortunately for Noah, who had a curse resistance and a physique that was immune to all negative powers, it only made his body stiffen for a moment, and the invisible force on his body was all shaken off. Jito Asuka's face suddenly turned red as she froze on the spot. Obviously, this was the first time that Jito Asuka's gift was ineffective. In this situation, Noah also reacted and couldn't help but take a step back and smiled embarrassedly. Sorry, I went to the wrong place." After saying this, Noah fiercely closed the door. Bang! The loud sound of the door closing resounded throughout the entire bathhouse. Black Rabbit, Jito Asuka and Haruhito Masaki looked at each other, and their pretty faces were incomparably red and no one said a word. In the end, it was Haruhito Masaki who used his usual quiet voice to say this sentence. "It seems like we have been seen naked. Touching the pot that didn't boil." Black Rabbit and Jito Asuka's pretty face turned red. Black Rabbit. Jito Asuka's face turned red as she angrily glared at Black Rabbit. "I remember that you were the last one to come in, right? Why didn't you lock the door?" Ugh. Black Rabbit's expression was as if he was about to cry, and spoke with fear and trepidation. I forgot." In other words, "It's all your fault that we have been seen naked, right?" Jito Asuka was so angry that her whole body was trembling, and fiercely reached out her hand and grabbed Black Rabbit's long ear and pulled it hard. "You stupid rabbit! You Black Rabbit frantically cried out. "Yo, cousin, quickly help me." However, Haruhito Masaki half squinted his eyes, and also reached out a hand and grabbed Black Rabbit's other long ear and pulled it hard. "You stupid rabbit! You Black Rabbit could only struggle as he cried out loudly. "I'm in the wrong." Watching Black Rabbit being ravaged by Jito Asuka and Haruhito Masaki, Aster only quietly watched from the side. A pair of mysterious eyes appeared as beautiful as gemstones in the foggy bathroom. About half an hour later in the main hall's meeting room, a group of no-name main members had all arrived at the scene. However, Juto Asuka's face was red, and she had a look of deep hatred. She stared at Noah, who was sitting opposite her, as if she couldn't wait to swallow Noah whole. Haruhito Masaki was hugging Sanmao, and was as quiet as usual, but he also half squinted his eyes and looked in Noah's direction. Black Rabbit touched her pair of long rabbit ears and stared at Noah with tears in her eyes. Her pitiful expression made people want to bully her. Sitting opposite Black Rabbit, Juto Asuka, and Haruhito Masaki, Noah endured the 3 different gazes, and felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. However, when he thought of the beautiful scene in the bathhouse, even Noah couldn't help but feel a ripple in his heart. Hey, I say, you guys didn't do anything interesting behind my back, right? 16 Knights crossed her arms, frowned, and cast her gaze to Noah's side. Also, who is that silver-haired loli over there? Everyone's gaze suddenly converged on the seat beside Noah. There, Aster was holding a piece of bread, biting it expressionlessly, and puffing his cheeks back and forth like a squirrel, looking extremely cute. Noah then remembered Aster's matter, and with the intention of changing the topic, he hurriedly asked Black Rabbit, Juto Asuka, and Haruhito Masaki. Right. That's right, how did you guys end up with Aster? When they were in the bathhouse, Black Rabbit, Juto Asuka, and Haruhito Masaki obviously planned to take a bath together with Aster. Undoubtedly, Noah didn't introduce Aster to everyone, so Black Rabbit and the others shouldn't know who Aster was. That. Black Rabbit was still rubbing her rabbit ears that were hurt by Juto Asuka and Haruhito Masaki, and said with tears in her eyes. Could it be that Miss Aster isn't under Noah-san's favor? Favor? Noah paused, then nodded. That's possible, but how did you guys know? Juto Asuka snorted. Didn't this child call you master? Chapter 1275. As mentioned earlier, as long as it was a mysterious power that ordinary humans couldn't possess, it could be called a gift. From this point of view, the power that Noah possessed was also called a gift in this world. Therefore, Noah had never denied that the power he possessed was a gift. Because from the worldview of this world, Noah's power was considered a gift. However, Noah's power wasn't obtained from this world, but from other worlds. In view of this, the so-called omniscient Laplace paper couldn't identify the power that Noah had obtained from other worlds, leading White Yiksha to conclude that there was no gift. After all, the so-called omniscience was only limited to this world. Even if it was called omniscient, it was impossible for Laplace to possess the knowledge of the other feather worlds in the world between worlds. In this world there were also many kinds of gifts. The gift that an individual possessed was a type of ability that was directly linked to one's soul. In other words, this type of gift was a part of one's soul. It couldn't be forcibly taken away without the consent of the owner of the gift. In addition, there were also gifts that could be bestowed on weapons, allowing the weapons to possess power and be used by the wielder. It was a materialized type of gift that could be used. This type of gift could be directly taken away by force. However, it was also because of this that some of the materialization-type blessings were extremely powerful and had very strict requirements for the user. If the requirements couldn't be met, then even if the gift was forcibly taken away, it couldn't be used. In addition, an individual with life could also become a gift. That was a situation that would only occur when the gift belonged to a certain person. For example, when some people used their own abilities to create living puppets, spirits, ghosts, and the like, these created individuals were naturally a gift from the creator. For example, some spirits, ghosts, and even gods signed a subordinate contract with a certain person and became that person's power. That was also a gift that belonged to the owner. In such a situation, even if the target was an individual with life, the gift card could be used to accept it. It was enough to prove the fact that they belonged to a certain person. Black Rabbit even said that in the box court, if someone defeated the Demon King in the gift game with the authority of the organizer, then the Demon King could also become a gift that belonged to him and the community. Therefore, when Aster called Noah his master, Black Rabbit naturally regarded Aster as a gift from Noah. As a matter of fact, in this world, Aster, who had signed a contract with Noah, was considered a gift from Noah. Noah didn't question this. What Noah was really puzzled about was why Aster was with Black Rabbit, Juto Asuka, and Haruhito Masaki. The one who answered Noah's question was not Black Rabbit, nor was it Kyuki or Kasuga Hiroyuki. Aster, who was chewing on a piece of bread, suddenly raised his head and said, "Because in the morning Master sprayed something on me, so I wanted to find water to wash it off. Coincidentally, I met these people and went to the bathing area together." As soon as he said this, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. Noah's mouth was agape. He looked at Aster with a marvelous expression. Black Rabbit, Jito Osaka, and Haruhito Masaki were silent for a while. Then they looked at Noah with disdain and contempt. It was as if he was looking at the king of ghosts and beasts. In the morning? Sprayed something? Still need to wash it off? 16 Knights looked at Noah in astonishment. Hey little bro, don't tell me you took something white." Before 16 Knights could finish his sentence, a fist suddenly whistled through the air and heavily smashed into his face. Bang! A hand suddenly caught the fist that was smashing towards him, causing a muffled sound to ring out. "I say, little bro." 16 Knights looked at Noah with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You didn't seem to have any intention of holding back with that punch, right? Is that so?" Noah's eyes twitched as he retracted his fist. "Anyway, student 16 Knights' skin is thick. You didn't die even after hundreds of punches, let alone one punch this time. A sandbag can also take hits, but I'm not a sandbag. Compared to getting hit, I prefer to hit people." 16 Knights spread his hands and revealed an evil smile. "Or do you really have a guilty conscience, little brother?" The corner of Noah's mouth twitched. He resisted the urge to punch 16 Knights in the face again. He took a deep breath and looked at Aster with a fake smile on his face. "Aster, can I trouble you to explain clearly what I sprayed on your body?" "Yes, Master." Aster's face was still expressionless. "Master sprayed something sticky on my body." Black Rabbit, Jiu Yuanfei, and Haruai Hikari's eyes became dangerous. Noah finally couldn't stay calm. "Aster." Noah almost covered his face. "Do you know that if you continue to use such misleading words, I won't be able to continue staying here?" "Why?" Aster tilted his head and asked in confusion. "What I said is the truth." "Then please explain clearly." Noah couldn't help but raise his voice. "What did I spray on you?" Aster blinked his eyes that were filled with mystery. After a while he finally spat out 2 words. "Saliva." Including Noah, Black Rabbit, Jiu Yuanfei, and Haruai Hikari almost fell down. "You sprayed saliva on the lowly?" 16 Knights laughed out loud. "Isn't this not bad? Little bro, how long did you lick this silver-haired lowly's body?" "Lick?" Black Rabbit, Jito Osaka, and Haruai Hikari opened their eyes wide and glared at Noah angrily. "I didn't expect Mr. Noah to be such a person. I thought you were a gentleman. I was wrong about you. I don't want to be friends with such a pervert. Wait. Don't be led by the nose by this guy." Noah couldn't help but yell out. "This guy only said that because he thought it was fun. Don't you see him clearly? In fact, this is indeed very fun," 16 Knights Reversal said openly without any remorse. "To be able to monopolize such a delicious lowly, you must have a lot of fun, right?" Noah turned his gaze to 16 Knights, and a dangerous glint flashed in his dark eyes. Okay, I won't say any more." 16 Knights raised his hand and made a gesture of surrender. "I still have something important to do today, so let's leave this for another time." Coincidentally, the door to the meeting room opened at this time. As the leader of the community, Rin walked in from outside and immediately sensed the strange atmosphere at the scene. He asked in confusion. "What's wrong? What happened?" "Nothing, young Master Xiao Budian, you came at the right time," 16 Knights said as if nothing had happened. "Now the main members of the community are all here. How should this community develop? Young Master Xiao Budian, tell us your plan." Hearing this, Black Rabbit, Jiu Yuanfei, and Haruai Hikari became serious. They glanced at Noah and sat down angrily. Obviously, these 3 girls still hadn't gotten over the fact that Noah had barged into the bathhouse and seen all of them naked. Noah could only sigh about how difficult his future would be. He sat down and said weakly, "All right, Rin, tell us about the long talk you had with 16 Knights last night. What was the result?" I understand." Rin was a little nervous, but he nodded with a sense of realization. He came to the seat of honor and sat down. The entire meeting room was suddenly shrouded in silence. Only the sound of Aster eating bread could be heard. Ren Huan glanced at the crowd and said, "I have decided that from today onwards, we will use Defeat the Demon King as the mission of the community. Chapter 1276. Defeat the Demon King? Ren's words confused everyone present except 16 knights. I'm sorry, Renkuan, I don't really understand what you mean. Zhu Yuao pointed out. Our community's flag, name and companions were all taken away by the Demon King. Then, defeating him as our mission, that seems to be natural, right? If that's the case, why ask something that is natural as a mission when you already know the answer? Zhu Yuao looked at Ren with such a meaning in her eyes. Not only Zhu Yuao, even Black Rabbit and Huai Toshi expressed their doubts. Only Noah frowned slightly as he spoke in an uncertain tone. Ren, the Demon King you speak of shouldn't be referring to the Demon King who took away our community's flag, name and companions? Yes. Ren nodded his head heavily. The defeat the Demon King that I'm referring to is not only the Demon King who took away our community's flag, name and companions, but all the Demon Kings in this box. All the Demon Kings. Black Rabbit, Zhu Yuao and Huai Toshi were all shocked. Not to mention the others, even Noah was shocked. Defeat all the Demon Kings as a mission? What kind of joke is this? Young Master Ren. Black Rabbit said in a panic. Are you serious? Black Rabbit couldn't be blamed for losing her composure. One must know that although the number of Demon Kings that wreaked havoc in the box was not in the thousands, but there were definitely hundreds and thousands. Among these Demon Kings, although some were weaker and some were stronger, just one Demon King was enough to beat the predecessor of No Name, to the point where he was unable to recover from the setback. Defeat all the Demon Kings as a mission? Then you don't even know how to write the word death, right? However, as the leader, Ren spoke rather calmly. I'm sorry, Black Rabbit, I'm serious because doing this will give our community a chance to develop and thrive. A chance to develop and thrive. Huai Toshi tilted her head and asked in confusion. What do you mean? If a community wants to develop, it is absolutely necessary to participate in the game of blessings. In other words, it requires powerful blessings and powerful blessings bearers, in other words, talents, Ren explained. If our community wants to take back our flag and name, we need powerful participants to join us. For this reason, we must let people with strength join our community. Everyone nodded in agreement. It was because of this that Black Rabbit summoned 16 knights, Zhu Yuasuka and Huai Biao into the box. However, it is undeniable that our community has neither a name nor a flag. Ren shook his head. Since there is nothing that can symbolize the community, even if we want to publicize the existence of the community and attract talents to join, it is impossible to do so. Moreover, as a nameless community, our community cannot have any factor that can attract outstanding talents to join. It had to be said that this was a cruel fact. The community that people called No Name had no famous members or rich resources. It only had a piece of land that had fallen into ruins and some children that needed to be protected. The only thing that could attract people's attention was probably Black Rabbit, who was known as the box aristocrat. So, I have discussed with Mr. 16 Knights. We think that we must highlight the uniqueness of this community and create opportunities and topics that can promote the name, so that we can attract talents, Ren said solemnly. As long as the slogan, Defeat the Demon King, is raised, then no matter what, this topic will spread in the box. Along with it, our community will also have the opportunity to promote and develop. That is to say, Black Rabbit said with some uncertainty. Young Master Ren, do you plan to promote the community in the form of rumors? Of course, it can't be just a rumor. Otherwise, not only will this community become a laughingstock, the rumors will also disappear with the passage of time. We have to create a community that can truly make people believe that our purpose is to defeat the Demon King. Ren Huan looked at everyone present. That is to say, we must really defeat the Demon King and make this purpose a reality. Black Rabbit, Zhu Yuasuka, and Huai Biao suddenly held their breaths. But isn't this purpose too dangerous? Noah put forward his own opinion. At that time, to this arrogant community with the purpose of defeat the Demon King, those Demon Kings who think that they are extraordinary will definitely have a reaction. If the Demon King is attracted, then what should we do? It doesn't matter. Our plan is to defeat the Demon King. It would be better if the other party comes to us himself, Ren said immediately. Moreover, the people who will be attracted will not only be the Demon King, but also those who have been persecuted by the Demon King. Like us, there must be many people who have fallen into such a miserable state because of the Demon King. Among them, there must be some who hate the Demon King and want to defeat the Demon King as their goal. This way they may join our community. Not to mention, as long as we can defeat the Demon King, then according to the rules of the box, we can make the Demon King one of our own people, right? 16 Knights said slowly. Since it is a guy who can be called the Demon King, his ability must be extraordinary. Defeat them one by one and then pull them into our community. In that case, the development of the community is simply unimaginable, isn't it? Everyone suddenly looked at each other. Indeed, this was a good method. However, there were too many uncertainties in it. If we act according to this policy in the end, it can indeed allow the community to achieve unimaginable development. Noah suddenly said. However, this is under the condition that the implementation of this policy is successful and smooth. Right now, only me, 16 Knights, Flying Bird, and Radiance are free to participate in the Game of Blessings. With the strength of the four of us, if we are defeated by the so-called Demon King, we will be doomed eternally, right? 16 Knights raised his eyebrows and showed a provocative smile to Noah. What's wrong, brother? Don't you have the confidence to defeat the Demon King? Whether I have confidence or not is one thing, whether there is risk or not is another thing. Noah looked calm and ignored 16 Knights' provocation. If there is a plan without risk, then it is naturally better than this, right? Is that so? 16 Knights' mouth raised. Then brother, do you have a better plan than this? There was no doubt that the plan proposed by Ren was decided after discussing with 16 Knights last night. In other words, the person who proposed this plan was 16 Knights. Now, reverse 16 Knights was issuing a challenge to Noah. He wanted to see if Noah could really come up with a better plan than this. In this regard, Noah just smiled faintly. Actually, I have a gift that allows me to summon an endless number of demons. Noah's words first stunned the people around him, then their eyes lit up. A gift that can summon endless monsters? Black Rabbit said with some excitement. Do you still have such a powerful gift, Mr. Noah? How about the specifics? Ren also asked with some expectation. What kind of strength can those monsters reach? What kind of strength? Noah pondered for a while and then gave such an answer. If a 4-digit number is the level of the famous Asura gods and Buddhas, and a 5-digit number is also a large number of gods and Buddhas, then the number of monsters I can summon should be at least 6 digits, right? At the very least, Noah believed that a level 100 monster would not be any weaker than a level 100 monster like Jard. So, in comparison, level 100 monsters should be able to squeeze into 6 digits. This made Black Rabbit and Ren's heartbeat begin to accelerate. An endless number of 6-digit monsters? Then even if it was to fight against those communities with 5 digits, it was not impossible, right? Under such circumstances, Noah's eyes flashed and suddenly said such a sentence. My plan is to summon a large number of monsters and massacre this 2105-380 outer sect. Chapter 1277. At this moment the entire no-name room was filled with an extremely heavy and silent atmosphere. With Ren as the leader, including Black Rabbit, Kiyoshi and Haruhi Yoshi, all of the members of No Name had a sudden change in expression. 16 Knights, on the other hand, focused his gaze on Noah. On his face, the insufferably arrogant smile had long disappeared without a trace. Under this kind of situation, the atmosphere of the no-name room that had become deathly silent became heavier and heavier. There was no other way. If it was said that 16 Knights' proposal of defeat the Demon King was a proposal that would shock people, then Noah's proposal of massacre the outer sect was a proposal that would cause people to not dare to believe. Thus, Ren secretly swallowed a mouthful of saliva, mustered up his courage and asked a question. No, Mr. Noah, what do you mean by that? I think that my words should be very easy to understand, right? Noah slightly raised his eyes and met Ren's gaze. It's just the literal meaning. Leader Ren, I think that if we want No Name to become famous and attract a large number of talents, we don't actually need to use such a dangerous goal like defeat the Demon King as a proposal. As long as I summon a large number of demons and massacre the outer sect, that would be enough. Seeing Noah's extremely calm expression as he said such a proposal that reeked of blood, Ren's hands under the table quietly clenched tightly. His palms were also sweating. Not only Ren but Black Rabbit's pretty face was also filled with shock. After she reacted, she hurriedly cried out, "No, Mr. Noah, Black Rabbit doesn't really understand what you mean. But why would massacring the outer sect make no name famous and attract a large number of talents? It's very simple. You all just need to think about it a little and you'll understand." Noah rested his cheek on one hand and rested his elbow on the table. His other hand tapped the table rhythmically with his fingers as he chuckled softly. "Think about it, if I were to summon a large number of 6-digit demons to attack this 2105380 outer sect, then in this outer sect, other than communities like Thousand Eyes who have bases in the higher levels, the rest of the communities would basically be unable to withstand the demons' attack, right? We only need to hide behind the scenes and let the 6-digit demons attack this outer door. When that time comes, there will definitely be a lot of casualties." Noah continued speaking in a voice that was so calm that it sounded a little cruel. "Wait until the 2105380 outer gate has a large number of casualties, then we will valiantly appear on stage and wipe out all these evil demons. Then even if we don't want to be famous, it will be impossible, right?" Rin, Kuroto, and Haruai all held their breaths. Hide behind the scenes and control the demons to attack the city, and then after the demons have caused a large number of casualties, pretend to be the righteous side and wipe out all the demons? That would indeed make no name famous in an instant. However, everyone present felt as if their hearts were tightly gripped, and they couldn't even breathe smoothly. And under such a situation, Noah was still speaking as if nothing had happened. "Compared to challenging the Demon King who we don't know if we can win, and if we lose we will have to pay a painful price. This method undoubtedly has no risk to us. After all, those demons are all summoned by me and controlled by me, so they won't be able to harm us. The ones who will die are just some insignificant residents, right?" Other than Ren, Kuroto, and Haruai all clenched their fists under the table. "This way we can become famous without any risk, and also gain the gratitude of those foolish residents who don't know that their family and friends have died in our hands. Why not?" Rin, Kuroto, and Haruai all couldn't breathe smoothly, and their breaths suddenly became a little hurried. "Moreover, we are the righteous side that wiped out the demons that harmed this city. As the ruler of the hierarchy, it is impossible for White Yiksha to not express his gratitude. Who knows, maybe he will give us a reward. Who knows, maybe we can get a powerful gift to increase our strength." Rin, Kuroto, and Haruai all lowered their heads and their bodies slightly trembled. Finally, those people whose family and friends were killed or those whose community was destroyed by the demons will have a deep impression of us who wiped out the demons and join our community. This way we will be able to obtain a large number of talents and achieve our goal. In the heavy space, the sound of rapid breathing began to spread. Noah, however, seemed to not have noticed anything and continued to speak. That's right. It's best if we can be like Jared and let the demons target children. That way we can better arouse the residents' resentment. When we wipe out the demons, their gratitude to us will be greater and maybe they will even join our community. It's really wonderful." Before he could finish his sentence, Jiufei Niao could no longer hold it in and cried out loudly. "Shut up." The words with power turned into invisible restraints and instantly covered Noah's body. However, Noah's body suddenly shook, and the invisible restraints were all shaken away and disappeared without a trace. However, Noah didn't continue speaking. Instead, he glanced at Jiufei Niao and said indifferently, "Don't worry." "What's wrong? Miss Kuroto? Do you think my proposal is unreasonable?" "No, it's reasonable, very reasonable. If we do as you say, this community can indeed develop greatly." Kuroto stared at Noah, and her eyes were filled with unprecedented anger and coldness. "It's just that I really didn't expect you to come up with such a proposal, Mr. Noah. I don't like this method." Haruai Hiroyuki lowered his eyes and said softly, "I don't want to do it either." "Why? Do you feel guilty?" Noah smiled and then looked at Ren. "But without a doubt this will allow the community to develop greatly, and our wish is to go against the Demon King who destroyed the community, and take back the most important flag, name and even companions of the community. At this point, Noah stared at Rin and enunciated each and every word clearly. Those companions might be locked up in prison right now and being tortured. They might also be treated as a prize like that child named Letitia. They might even be sold as a commodity. Even so, you still want to consider the safety of others first and consider the means to do so? Rin immediately lowered his head and fell silent. Kuroto and Hirai Hiroyuki also fell silent and couldn't speak anymore. Only Black Rabbit, whose pretty face was uncertain, looked like she wanted to say something but didn't know what to say. In the end, she could only hang her head dejectedly. As for 16 Nights, she remained silent from beginning to end and didn't say a word. The atmosphere was heavy. After a long time, Rin took a deep breath and looked at Noah. Perhaps if we do according to Mr. Noah's proposal, our community will be able to develop greatly in a short time. Compared to defeating the Demon King, there is no risk and it will be more efficient. But Rin couldn't help but stand up. If I do this, even if my companions can come back, they will definitely not forgive me. That's right. Black Rabbit seemed to have found an organization and also stood up, trying to express her thoughts. The feeling of losing companions, family and friends, Black Rabbit and young Master Rin will understand it best, and so will everyone. We must not let the rest of the outer sect be like us, living in pain and suffering. So Mr. Noah. Ren's tone became firm. Sorry, I can't accept this proposal. Everyone suddenly fell silent. Is that so? Noah turned his head, but the corner of his mouth raised into an imperceptible arc. I understand, then so be it. Everyone suddenly let out a sigh of relief. On the side, 16 Nights, who had been watching Noah, clearly noticed Noah's imperceptible smile, raised his eyebrows and also smiled. Chapter 1278. In the end, after some discussion, everyone agreed to Ren's proposal to let No Name become a community with the mission of defeat the Demon King. They would first expand their reputation in the outer sect of 2105380. For this reason, they had to first publicize the mission of No Name. Ren thought that he could ask White Yiksha for help with this. As the leader of the East District, White Yiksha not only had a base in the 4 digits, but he was also a cadre of the super large business community, Thousand Eyes, that had influence all over the 4 regions. With White Yiksha's power, as long as he said a few words to the people below him, then the people of each branch of Thousand Eyes would publicize the mission of No Name and make it a topic of discussion. For this reason, Rin and Black Rabbit planned to set off together and go to a branch of Thousand Eyes to negotiate with White Yiksha and ask him for help. Although White Yiksha was the leader of the East District and a cadre of Thousand Eyes, there was no reason for him to help a No Name that didn't even have a name or a banner. However, with Black Rabbit, this matter shouldn't be a problem. After all, White Yiksha was a standard pervert. As long as Black Rabbit sacrificed a bit of her body, this matter should be done. For this reason, Black Rabbit agreed with a heart of despair. By the way, this plan was also proposed by 16 Nights in reverse. Therefore, Black Rabbit already hated reverse 16 Nights. In addition to the development of No Name, the matter of the bestowal game that used Letitia as a prize was also brought up. In order to take back the Demon King's companions and combat power, everyone agreed that they had to participate in this bestowal game. For this reason, the participants of this bestowal game were decided by everyone. If there were many people participating, then it would be decided based on the situation. When necessary, everyone would participate. If only one person could participate, then they would choose between Noah and 16 Nights who had the greatest combat power. This decision made Jiu Yuanyao, who used to be the young miss of a famous conglomerate and had a higher self-esteem than the average person, rather dissatisfied with the competitive Hirai Buyao who didn't match her appearance. However, Kyuki and Hibuyaichi knew their limits. They knew that in terms of combat power, they were still lacking compared to Noah and 16 Nights reversal. As such, even though they were dissatisfied, Kiyoshi Asuka and Hibuyaichi didn't mention it. Instead, they agreed with this decision. After making these decisions, the meeting was adjourned. Pushing open the door, Noah walked out of the conference room and held Aster's hand as they walked towards the room. As they walked, Noah spoke faintly. Hey Aster, can you not use such misleading words next time? What is Master referring to? Aster didn't even turn his head. He held Noah's hand and walked forward without looking sideways. His expression didn't change in the slightest. Are you referring to when Master sprayed something on me? Can't you just say that I accidentally dripped some saliva on you? Noah felt that this was the first time in his life that he felt so ashamed. Thanks to you, I was almost destroyed by humanity. It's okay, Aster said as if it was a matter of fact. I am Master's sword. I won't let anyone hurt Master. That's not the problem, right? Noah almost facepalmed. Before I will be hurt, first of all, I will have a lot of problems in terms of social survival. It's okay. Aster's face was still expressionless. Master won't always stay in this world. So, even if you can't survive in this world, you can still survive in another world. Fine, I can't win against you. Noah let out a big sigh. Then can you please inform me when you leave my side in the future? It's all thanks to you again. I have the wonderful feat of seeing all the members of the opposite sex in the community naked on the first day I joined. Hearing this, Aster tilted his head. After a while he spat out 3 words. Are you happy? Is it a question of whether I am happy or not? Just when Noah had the urge to die, a figure appeared in front of him. Oh, little brother. 16 Knights crossed his arms and leaned against the wall. He looked in Noah's direction and grinned. Are you having fun with your loli? Noah stopped and looked straight at 16 Knights. His hand that was holding Aster's hand tightened slightly. Aster immediately understood and closed his eyes. His body emitted a beautiful light and turned into light particles. They gathered in Noah's hand and turned into the shape of a silver dagger. Seeing the small silver sword in Noah's hand, 16 Knights' eyes flashed. It was unknown what he thought of, but he seemed to be deep in thought. Under such circumstances, Noah placed Ace, who had transformed into a small silver sword, back on his waist. As he did so, he asked casually, "What? You need something from me?" 16 Knights curled his lips, but his eyes were fixed on Noah. Why did you propose such a plan? What do you mean why? Noah curled his lips into a smile. Since it's a plan, it should be proposed and discussed with everyone, right? The problem is, do you really want to discuss it with others? 16 Knights smacked his lips. Undoubtedly you don't want to use such a plan, right? Oh. Noah raised his eyebrows. Why do you think so? It's very simple. 16 Knights said bluntly. I don't think a person who joined this impoverished community for the sake of helping others would want to carry out such a program. Is that so? Noah was silent for a while and then smiled. Then why do you think I proposed such a plan? That's very simple. 16 Knights looked straight at Noah. You want to know if this community will become unscrupulous and blindly pursue their goals in order to achieve their wishes and goals when they are almost at their wits' end, right? Noah was a little speechless, then he sighed. The so-called ideals and goals can only be called ideals and goals if they are pursued with all their might. However, sometimes ideals and goals that are too far away may also lead to uncontrollable pursuits, making people blind, impatient, reckless, and even suicidal. 16 Knights continued Noah's words. In order to arouse attention to things that have been neglected, raise objections, and deepen the determination of the path forward for ideals and goals, that is the so-called work of the so-called hero behind the scenes, right? I don't want to be a hero behind the scenes. Noah smiled bitterly. I just don't want to see this community that exists to protect the home that its companions can return to walk into a fork in the road ahead. Just treat it as me satisfying my own personal feelings. Self-satisfaction. 16 Knights closed his eyes, but the corners of his mouth curved into a smile that seemed to be both joyful and happy. Well then let's treat it as that. Is there anything else? Noah said in annoyance. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. I still have things to do. Go. Reverse 16 Knights waved his hand nonchalantly as if he was chasing someone away. Noah could only helplessly roll his eyes, then he walked past 16 Knights and walked forward. 16 Knights watched Noah leave and the smile on his face began to disappear. Although it was only a plan proposed as a warning and confirmation, if that plan was really implemented it would be effective, right? Recalling the plan proposed by Noah, 16 Knights also showed a rare bitter smile. If he can really achieve his goals at all costs, that guy should have no less than 10 ways to restore this community to its heyday, right? I really don't know what kind of world he used to live in. Chapter 1279. The Outer Gate of Hakata City 2105380. The residential area, the Base of No Name. In the Base of No Name, there is a huge library on the third floor of the main library. This library has the records of the gift game that this community participated in the past, the collection of books in Hakata, and all kinds of biographies related to the existence of Shura gods and Buddhas, and the number is not small. When Ren and Black Rabbit went to look for Byakuya for the promotion of No Name, 16 Nights Retrograde, Jiyun Flying Bird, and Haruhito Hikari went back to their own rooms to do their own things. They seemed to be preparing to recharge their energy for the upcoming game of taking back Letitia's gift. And Noah, under the guidance of Lily, came to the library on the third floor of the main library. Coming to this world is just a matter of yesterday. Regarding the understanding of this place called Hakata, even if Black Rabbit already knew some of the basics, but it is only the basics. In order to better move in this world, Noah still has to do the same as before. First, he needs to collect information so as not to become a blind person and be surprised and ignorant when encountering any situation. So Noah came to this library. Holding a book in his hand, Noah leaned against a bookshelf and flipped through it while talking to himself. I don't know if there is a record of the strongest race in Hakata like the Star Spirit. In Hakata there are all kinds of Shura gods and Buddhas. Those Shura gods and Buddhas are almost the same as the gods mentioned in the various myths and legends that Noah learned in other worlds. Once upon a time in the world of the God Slayer, in order to better deal with all kinds of God Slayers and disobedient gods, Noah had studied various series of myths and legends. So, for the famous Shura gods and Buddhas in Hakata, Noah knows more than the average person. This is also the preparation for the incarnation of the warrior. After all, although the authority of the warrior could sever the divinity and seal the authority of the gods, it was much more special and powerful than the other incarnations of the authority of Noah's 10 incarnations. However, there were conditions for its use. If he didn't understand the ability he wanted to seal, he wouldn't be able to use it. Because of this, Noah needed to have all kinds of knowledge. I wonder if I can defeat White Yiksha using the warrior avatar. This thought flashed across Noah's mind. Soon after, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. White Yiksha isn't an enemy. I don't know if there's a possibility of a fight. Why do I have to consider whether I can defeat her? Perhaps, this was also the result of Noah's competitive nature? Although he wouldn't feel proud if he won and wouldn't feel depressed if he lost as expected, no one wanted to lose compared to winning. Not to mention Noah was also a god slayer. He could be considered a natural warrior, so he was more or less competitive. Forget it, there's no harm in being prepared. Perhaps there really is a chance that we will face the 3 strongest species of Hakata. If we have the knowledge to deal with them, then there won't be any problems. Among the 3 strongest species in the box court, Noah already possessed all the knowledge of the gods and Buddhas that were born with divine knowledge. The only ones left were the star elves and the pure-blooded dragon species, which were also the strongest species. However, the knowledge of the pure-blooded dragon species is quite difficult to prepare. The star elves referred to the main sprites of celestial bodies above the stellar level. It was not an exaggeration to treat them as the celestial bodies themselves. Existences like this were basically classified as gods in the world of the God Slayer. Therefore, Noah also had a portion of the star elves' knowledge. As for the rest, even if he didn't have it, it was impossible for celestial bodies above the stellar level to not be famous. Noah only needed to search and he should be able to find the records of most of the star elves. However, the pure-blooded dragon species were a little troublesome. This was because the pure-blooded dragon species were not born, but happened. At a certain moment, a powerful force gathered without warning and a species appeared out of thin air. That was the way the pure-blooded dragon species were born. Therefore, the pure-blooded dragon species would only give birth to a pure-blooded descendant when it was a single reproduction. If they mated with a different species and used the method of reproduction to breed the descendant would only be a subdragon. If it was a pure-blooded dragon species that had existed for a long time, then I should still be able to find the recorded knowledge. The problem is that the newborn pure-blooded dragon species should not be recorded, right? Noah thought about this while continuing to flip through the books in his hand. In short, it's better to be prepared. If it's some other famous existence, I'll find a record and write it down. With such a thought in mind, Noah used his extraordinary memory and comprehension to absorb the water known as knowledge like a sponge as usual. He read until the sky turned dark. It wasn't until the sky turned dark that Noah stood up from the ground. Around him there were already a lot of books piled up. Rin and the black rabbit should be back soon. Noah stretched. Let's continue tomorrow. Just as Noah was about to leave the library and return to the top, a series of hurried footsteps sounded. He saw that Rin and the black rabbit were leading a group of no-name members all squeezed into the library and quickly walked over. Mr. Noah. The black rabbit looked like he was about to cry as he said this. Lady Letitia's gift game has been postponed. Hearing this, Noah was slightly stunned. He turned his head and looked at 16 knights. When 16 knights nodded his head with a face full of displeasure, his face also sank. The courtyard at night was undoubtedly very beautiful. In the sky, almost every star could be seen very clearly and they were shining brightly. The moonlight even shone on the entire courtyard, covering the courtyard with a layer of silver frost. The street lamps gave off a faint light. There was no sign of anyone around at all. A peaceful atmosphere filled the entire space, making people feel at peace. Here there were no dazzling neon lights. Here there were no cars that ran on the road day and night. Here there were no excessive laughter and entertainment. Here there were no annoying noises or crowds. To be able to see a sky full of stars in a place where humans lived, for people who lived in modern times, it was a very surprising thing. Unfortunately, Noah and his group who came out of no-name space did not have the leisure to admire the stars and the moon. Instead they rushed to the branch of Thousand Eyes as fast as they could. And in the branch of Thousand Eyes, a clerk seemed to have been waiting for a long time. In a businesslike tone he said this to Noah and his group. Everyone, Lord White Yiksha has been waiting for you for a long time. In other words, White Yiksha already knew that no-name's group would come. Please come in with me. The clerk led the group of no-name members into the store. Entering the store, passing through the courtyard, Noah and his group were led by the clerk to the building in the courtyard. Inside, White Yiksha sat at the head of the table. He was still holding the paper fan in his hand. His eyes were closed and he was fanning himself expressionlessly. However, he did not know if it was Noah's illusion. Noah felt that White Yiksha's mood seemed to be extremely unhappy. The reason for this was probably because of the other person in the room. A man with flaxen hair wearing a snakeskin top and a thin body sat opposite White Yiksha. He had a frivolous and annoying smile on his face. Perhaps because he heard the footsteps, the man turned his head and looked at the door. In the next second, the man completely focused his gaze on the black rabbit. He opened his eyes and cheered in surprise. Whoa, a rabbit. It's really a rabbit. Although I heard that there are rabbits here. I didn't expect it to be true. As he said this, the man's gaze swept up and down Black Rabbit's body as if he wanted to lick it all over. This made Black Rabbit hide behind Noah in disgust. You're here? Only then did White Yiksha open his eyes. You're here at the right time. I know that you're here because of the sudden cancellation of Thousand Eyes' gift game. However, that was completely the decision of this upstart in front of you. So if you have any questions, then go directly to him. Chapter 1280. White Yiksha's words made Noah and the others turn their gazes to the frivolous man. However, the other party didn't even look at Noah and the others. He continued to size up Black Rabbit, and his gaze became more and more unscrupulous. In this regard, Black Rabbit's expression also became more and more unsightly, but there was nothing he could do. He could only shrink his body behind Noah's back and remain silent. Under such circumstances, White Yiksha slowly opened his mouth. His name is Luos. You might not know him, but if we talk about the community of Perseus, you should be able to understand, right? Perseus? 16 Knights Reverse, Jiyuki and Haruai Hikari all looked at Luos with some surprise. Then White Yiksha slowly opened his mouth. He is the leader of Perseus. At this moment 16 Knights Reverse, Jiyuki and Haruai Hikari all frowned. Not to mention the others, even Noah also frowned. Perseus. The Chinese translation was Perseus. In Greek mythology he cut off the head of the snake-haired demoness Medusa and offered it to Athena, the goddess of wisdom. He was a hero who had many magical items. Once in the world of the God Slayer, Noah had a dispute with Perseus, who was the incarnation of the god of disobedience, and had cut him down with his sword. And in the many boxes where the Asura gods and Buddhas ran rampant, the famous hero Perseus also existed. Here not only did the hero named Perseus exist, but he also established a community that directly used his name as the name of the organization, which was called Perseus. And this community named Perseus was represented by the descendants of Perseus. Since Luos was the leader of Perseus, it meant that this guy who looked like a spoiled brat was the descendant of the hero Perseus. Of course, this was not the reason why Noah and the others frowned. There was only one reason that made Noah and the others frown. That was, the community named Perseus was under the banner of Thousand Eyes, just like White Yiksha. As mentioned earlier, Thousand Eyes was a community of people. In Thousand Eyes, half of them were direct subordinates like by Yasha, while the other half were members of the community under the banner. The community named Perseus existed as the cadres of Thousand Eyes in the form of a community. In other words, this prodigal son was White Yiksha's companion in name. Moreover, the community in charge of organizing the gift game with Letitia as the prize was Perseus, a member of Thousand Eyes. In other words, Letitia was Perseus' property. Therefore, White Yiksha got Noah's group to look for Luos. However, Luos did not even look at Noah and the rest. He only looked at the black rabbit with a lustful gaze. That look completely displayed the word, prodigal son, vividly. Then Noah directly looked at White Yiksha. Why did you suddenly cancel the game? How can the gift game, which dominates everything in the box court, be cancelled just like that? If there is a legitimate reason, then it can't be helped even if it is cancelled, White Yiksha said sarcastically. Of course, for personal reasons, there are people who casually cancel the gift game and damage their reputation. As long as the reward and benefits are so high that they do not hesitate to damage the flag and name of the community, then there will still be such despicable people. From White Yiksha's tone, it was clear that she was also very dissatisfied with Luos canceling the game. Moreover, White Yiksha's relationship with Luos seemed to be quite bad. However, everyone could understand. No one would have a good impression of a prodigal son who did not hide his desires and could casually do things that damaged his reputation. Luos himself was naturally aware of this. Though it should be said that this prodigal son only knew that White Yiksha was very displeased with him. Thus, Luos finally retracted his gaze from the black rabbit and smiled in a non-committal manner. I cancelled it after getting the consent of the scheduled contestant. I have already fulfilled the minimum etiquette, right? Is that so? White Yiksha sneered. Are you sure you used etiquette to get the contestant to agree to cancel it? Then it has nothing to do with the ruler of the East District, right? Luos smiled proudly. Anyway, that vampire is my possession. I can do whatever I want. Is there a problem? I see. Do you think there is no problem? White Yiksha was so angry that she laughed. Casually canceling the gift game and damaging the reputation of Thousand Eyes is enough to demote Perseus, right? Maybe. Luos shrugged. However, that has nothing to do with you. I am only here to take back my possession. Speaking of this, Luos looked at Noah and the others and suddenly sneered. However, that guy is really an idiot. He actually gave his gift to the Demon King just because he wanted a period of freedom and came down to the lower levels to see his companions. He really can't be any more stupid. Luo's words shocked Noah and the others. What did you say? Black Rabbit came out from behind Noah and said in disbelief. You're saying that in order to meet us, Lady Letitia gave up her gift? Otherwise, how do you think that vampire who was reduced to a prisoner of the Demon King and was taken away from your community would come here to meet you? Luos curled his lips. Although pure-blooded vampires are all existences with divinity, that guy used his own divinity as the price in exchange for temporary freedom. He has less than 1/10 of his strength left, which is really unpleasant. If that vampire's divinity still existed, the price should be much higher, right? Price. Reverse 16 Knights suddenly raised his head and stared at Luos. You said price? Why? Don't you know why I canceled the gift game? Luos showed an impudent smile. Then let me tell you. Because someone wanted to buy her at a high price, I canceled the gift game and prepared to sell her outside the box. Wah. Ren took a deep breath. Outside the box. Do you know what you are doing? Black Rabbit couldn't hide his agitation and shouted. Vampires can only live in the box with curtains. If they walk out of the box, they will not be able to move under the sun. Hearing this, Luos directly replied. What has that got to do with me? You? Jiao Yuao and Huai Biao's eyes were filled with anger. Just as Jiao Yuao and Huai Biao were about to step forward, Noah extended his hand and stopped them. He looked at Luos with a calm expression. What? Luos squinted his eyes. What are you looking at? It's nothing. Noah smiled. I just don't like you. Is that so? Luos's smile didn't change, but his eyes didn't smile. You are just a mere no-name. You are quite daring. Because I am just a mere no-name, no matter what I do, this community at the bottom of the hierarchy won't suffer any losses. Noah said with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Unlike the famous Perseus. Undoubtedly, this community was built by a famous hero, but it was defeated by a spoiled brat. Sure enough, when you have a son, you lose your father. The smile on Luos's face disappeared. Luos stared at Noah with a murderous look in his eyes. Are you planning to provoke me? What? Does the spoiled brat want to prove that even a rotten person can get angry? Noah glanced at Luos. Save it. You are only suited to eat and play, not to fight and kill. Go home and sleep. Chapter 1281. Actually, Noah's words were not wrong. Luos was a typical hedonistic son, an idiot who spent all his time on eating, drinking, and having fun. Luos' ancestor, who was also the hero Perseus, was a rather famous legendary character. In Greek mythology, after the hero Perseus completed all his achievements, under the guidance of the gods, he ascended to the sky and became a constellation. The constellation that Perseus became was the famous immortal constellation. And in this world, Perseus, who was believed to have ascended to the sky and become a constellation, was actually invited to the box court after completing his final achievements. From there, he created a community called Perseus. In other words, at the beginning, Perseus was not a community under the command of Thousand Eyes. In the box court that gathered all kinds of Asuras, gods, and Buddhas, communities like Perseus, that were created by legendary figures, were not in the minority. However, after a long period of time, some of the original organizations were annihilated in the long river of history, while some sought protection from other communities after their power weakened, and became their subordinates. The Perseus that Luos led was under the command of Thousand Eyes, and was able to establish a base in the outer sect of the 5 digits. It was because of the backing of Thousand Eyes that Perseus was able to survive until now. However, ever since Luos took over Perseus, the situation of this famous community took a turn for the worse. The reason was because Luos was only interested in women, money, and eating, drinking, and having fun. He was a vulgar hedonist. This man did not care about the affairs of the community at all. Even if the documents of the community were piled up like a mountain in the office, Luos did not even look at them. No matter how strong the community was, under Luos's uncaring circumstances, it was impossible for there to be no problems. However, Luos believed that this was because Perseus did not have the ability to stay in the 5 digits. With an uncaring attitude, he proposed to move the community's base down a level. Luos believed that after reaching the 6 digits with the ability of the old 5 digits community, they would definitely be able to stand firm. At that time, Luos could continue to eat, drink, and be merry for the rest of his life. Undoubtedly, when Luos took over Perseus, he also inherited many powerful gifts from his ancestors. If he wanted to stay in the 5 digits, it was definitely not impossible. However, Luos did not even have the slightest intention of letting Perseus continue to flourish. He monopolized so many powerful gifts, but did not contribute to the development of the community. He did not even carry out any work, leaving Perseus to fend for itself. This was also the reason why they didn't care about the reputation of Thousand Eyes, and directly cancelled the gift game with Letitia as the prize. They sold Letitia out of the box. This man did not care about the status and reputation of Perseus. Therefore, Luos, who indifferently proposed to move the base of the community down a level, did not care about the protection of Thousand Eyes. He did not intend to continue to be under Thousand Eyes' command. Therefore, Noah's words were completely correct. Unfortunately, the so-called hedonistic son of a rich family only knew how to eat, drink, play, and bully others. With regards to Noah's unrestrained mockery, Luce did not care about the content. He only cared about Noah's arrogant attitude. At that moment, Luce's face was filled with anger. He suddenly stood up and stared at Noah. Just a mere no-name, do you really think that you can ride on my head without saying anything? Indeed, as a 7-digit community compared to a 5-digit big shot, I am just an insignificant character. Not to mention that we don't even have a flag or a name. Noah slightly raised his eyes and said with an unfathomable smile. However, as a subordinate of Thousand Eyes, aren't you also indifferent to the loss of your superior's reputation? My level compared to you who was able to stay in the 5 digits for so long because of the protection of Thousand Eyes. And now you are so ungrateful that you don't care about the protection of Thousand Eyes. I should be considered not bad, right? Luce's face became extremely ugly. But in the next moment Luce laughed. I understand now. You want to provoke me into a duel and make me agree to the bestowment game. Then you will use that vampire as a trophy to prevent me from selling him to the outside world, right? Hearing this, Noah was stunned at first, then he could not help but laugh out loud. That uncontrollable laughter made the smile on Luo's face twitch. The anger in his eyes could not be concealed. What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at? Noah sneered. I'm laughing at you for thinking too much, second-generation ancestor. Not only are you not suitable for killing, you are not even suitable for using your brain. It is better for you to obediently play your role as a hedonistic son of a rich family and stop embarrassing yourself. Bastard. Luce finally could not hold back his anger and pulled out a card from his pocket. It was the bestowment card. The bestowment card in Luce's hand emitted a blinding light. The light gradually condensed in the air and twisted into the shape of a sickle. Luce reached out his hand and grabbed the sickle-shaped light, causing it to explode. In the next moment, a sickle-shaped sword appeared in Luce's hand. In Greek mythology, the hero Perseus, who was given the mission to destroy the Gorgon Medusa, was given several items. The Hermes boots that allowed him to fly. The helmet of Hades that allowed him to become invisible. The snake hunter's sickle that could kill gods. Also, after killing Medusa, the goddess shield that was embedded in Medusa's head. These items with magical abilities were all inherited by Luce, the descendant of Perseus. At this moment, the sickle-shaped sword in Luce's hand was the snake hunter's sickle that cut off the Gorgon Medusa's head. Be careful. Black Rabbit, Jun Asuka, Haruhito Hikari, and the others who didn't expect Luce to suddenly take out a weapon exclaimed. Lowly person who doesn't even have a name. Luce shouted furiously. I'll let you know who you're talking to with that mouth of yours. After saying that, Luce raised the sickle-shaped sword in his hand without any hesitation. The sickle-shaped sword cut through the air like a cold light and ruthlessly slashed in Noah's direction. At this moment, White Yiksha and 16 knights narrowed their eyes. Only Noah's dark eyes flickered slightly, and a mocking and triumphant smile appeared on his face. Clank. Accompanied by a crisp sound, the sickle-shaped sword that slashed down like moonlight was directly pinched by 2 fingers and stopped in midair. What? Luce's expression changed. On the other hand, Noah happened to be the opposite. He raised his head, met Luce's gaze and smiled softly. Now even if I kill you, it's just self-defense. It's not considered a crime, right? When this sentence came out of Noah's mouth, Luce finally understood Noah's plan. Yes. Noah was indeed purposely angering Luce. However, Noah angered Luce not because he wanted to use this as an excuse to duel with Luce and take back Letitia. Instead, he wanted Luce to make a move and then kill this spoiled brat in the name of self-defense. You? Luce felt a chill run down his spine. Unfortunately, it was too late to react now. This place is too small. Noah gripped his scythe-shaped sword tightly as he spoke nonchalantly. Let's go somewhere else. After saying that, Noah suddenly turned around and kicked Luce's abdomen. Bang! In the muffled sound, Luce was directly kicked out and crashed into the wall. Chapter 1282. Bang! The wall of the Thousand Eyes store suddenly exploded, and the debris shot out like bullets in all directions. Inside the wall, Luos flew out involuntarily with a sharp piercing sound. Damn it! Feeling the pain in his abdomen, Luo's face was completely filled with anger. That bastard, he actually dared to attack me? These words had just sounded out when a figure suddenly flashed in front of Luos. Once again, it was accompanied by a whip shadow as a kick landed heavily on the side of Luos's waist. Bang! The terrifying force that couldn't be matched by human strength exploded on Luo's waist, making Luos groan. His body was like a kite with a broken string, rubbing against the air as he flew out in the whistling wind. Like an afterimage, Luos was sent flying out of the street in mid-air. Like a meteor falling from the sky, he crashed into an empty field in the outskirts of the city, stirring up a thick cloud of dust. At this time, another figure flew over from the horizon like a meteor and floated in mid-air. Noah lowered his head and looked at the thick cloud of dust that rose up like a mushroom cloud. Floating in mid-air, he narrowed his eyes. In the middle of the thick cloud of dust, Luos struggled to get up from the ground. He held his waist and looked at Noah with bloodshot eyes full of anger. A member of the lowly community that doesn't even have a name dares to treat me like this? What? The son of the Hero Highness thinks that 2 kicks aren't enough, right? Noah smirked. However, that's true. As a high-level life form, you can still stand up after being kicked twice by me with all my strength. It seems that eating, drinking, and playing didn't weaken your body. I'll honestly praise you on this point. The hero in Greek mythology named Perseus was the son of the main god Zeus. In other words, Perseus was also a god. After coming to the box, Perseus only chose a human as his partner. Originally, it was impossible for gods and humans to give birth to children, as they were 2 different life forms. However, those who were born by twisting this unreasonable rule would become an existence of a higher level than the original life form. They would be known as the god race or demigod as a higher level life form. Luos was such an existence. In addition, as an ancestor, Perseus had achieved many achievements that humans could not achieve and obtained an extremely high level of spirit lattice. This spirit lattice was inherited by Luos. In other words, not only was Luos a high-level life form, but he also had a high-level spiritual core. Even with Noah's extraordinary physical strength, he still couldn't make such an existence lose its ability to fight with just a few kicks. That's right. Noah smiled mockingly. As a punching bag, you're qualified. The words successfully ignited the rage in Luo's heart. Don't be too arrogant. Despicable Wu Ming. As Luos roared furiously, a pair of shining wings suddenly unfurled from the pair of boots on his feet, allowing him to slowly float into the air. Other than Hermes' boots, what else could it be? I'll make you regret it, bastard. With such fury, the pair of boots on Luo's feet suddenly flapped. With a chi sound, his body shot towards Noah like a gust of wind. Seeing this, Noah raised his eyebrows and quickly took 2 steps back in the air. At this moment, Luos had already turned into a black shadow and swept in front of Noah. The scythe-shaped sword in his hand was like a sharp blade, exuding an eerie chill as it directly slashed towards Noah's head. However, almost at the same time, a fist wrapped in a dazzling vortex of air tore through space and heavily collided with the scythe-shaped sword. Clang! The collision between the fist and the scythe-shaped sword actually caused a sound of metal clashing, causing a powerful ripple of wind to spread out, causing the entire atmosphere to become chaotic. Hiya! Luos let out a furious roar and swung the scythe-shaped sword in his hand, wildly slashing towards Noah's head. However, in the face of Luo's attack, Noah only slightly tilted his body and moved a small distance to the right. The scythe-shaped sword that was swinging towards him like a windmill landed on empty air. After missing his attack, the anger in Luo's eyes intensified. The scythe-shaped sword in his hand suddenly danced, bringing about streaks of sharp shadows that enveloped Noah's entire body like a storm. However, instead of retreating, a hand suddenly extended forward. Like a fallen leaf in a storm, it lightly avoided the streaks of sharp shadows and directly extended towards one of the streaks of sharp shadows. Ding! In the next moment, a crisp sound was heard. The dancing scythe-shaped sword suddenly froze. Luo's face also changed slightly. As for the hand that suddenly stretched out, it used 2 fingers to clamp down on the scythe-shaped sword that was slashing down like a storm a second ago, firmly fixing it in the air. In the legends, the scythe-shaped sword that could even chop off the head of the immortal snake-haired demon Medusa and even kill the gods, in the hands of someone who only knows how to wave it around, is it only at this level? Tightly clamping down on the famous weapon, Noah cast a pitying and mocking gaze at Luos, whose face had changed slightly. What a waste of God's gift. Shut up. Luos' face was flushed red as he roared in a low voice. He actually ignored the scythe-shaped sword that was tightly clamped by Noah and raised his fist. With a whistling wind, his fist directly smashed towards Noah's face. There was almost no technique involved in this attack. It was like a gangster in a gang fight. He did not consider whether he would hit a vital point or other problems. He only used all his strength and directly punched towards his opponent's face. This extremely childish attack made Noah's face reveal a cold smile and disappointment. You really are just an ignorant and incompetent second generation. Saying this, Noah did not even bother to dodge as he watched the fist with a whistling wind coming towards his face. Seeing this, Luos could not help but be overjoyed. He suddenly increased the strength of his fist and viciously punched towards Noah's face. Although it was an extremely childish attack, but with the help of his high life force and high spirit lattice, just the strength of the attack alone was enough to cause a dent in the chest of a normal person. Even if it was Noah, he would not be able to avoid the pain if he was hit. Therefore, when the fierce wind rushed towards Noah along with the fist, Noah's eyes flashed. He suddenly clenched one of his hands into a fist and silently streaked across the air, colliding violently with Luos' fist. Peng! Following a muffled sound, a powerful ripple of energy spread out rapidly. It was like a shock wave but also like a rolling sound wave. It directly shook in all directions. Luos could only feel a terrifying force gushing out from the fist like a tidal wave, slamming heavily into his body. Dong! Amidst the impact that could not be heard by others, Luos once again became a kite with a broken string. He fell from midair and smashed onto the ground. Luos's face flushed red as he spat out a mouthful of blood with a poochie sound. Luos clutched his aching chest and raised his head with difficulty. He looked in the direction of Noah and shouted in disbelief. Why can't a mere human win? Noah looked down at Luos, who was lying on the ground. His eyes were filled with disdain that had never been there before. Then Noah said, "That's right. No matter how good your innate conditions are, you are still just a second-generation rich kid. Idiot." The most direct insult and humiliation finally made Luos go crazy. Despicable fellow. I will definitely make you regret this. Luos roared crazily as he violently tore off an ornament on a short necklace around his neck. That ornament was in the shape of a gorgon's head. Black Rabbit and White Yikshaw, who had just arrived at the scene, saw this scene and their expressions changed abruptly. Black Rabbit shouted out loud. Not good. Mr. Noah. Stop him quickly. Chapter 1283. Not good. Mr. Noah. Stop him. Almost at the same time as Black Rabbit shouted, the snake-haired banshee's head ornament that Luos ripped off his neck emitted a dazzling light. Clang! Amidst the vibrations in the atmosphere, the dazzling light that bloomed in the entire space was a crimson color like blood. The bright red light bloomed on Luos's gift, and it flashed in a way that reminded people of starlight. Waves of light vibrated as it flashed, and it surged in all directions like a tide. Holding up such a dazzling light, Luos declared loudly, "Come out, Argel." At this moment, the light in Luos's hand suddenly soared into the sky like a pillar of light, rushing into the sky and into the clouds. Wung! In the next moment, the entire sky suddenly trembled as if the light from before was reflected back. The bright red pillar of light shook the space and fell from the sky. In the blink of an eye, it hit the ground. Dong! It was as if something heavy had fallen and smashed onto the ground. The entire space seemed to have been shaken. The tremor caused the bright red light to cover the entire place in an instant. Everyone, including Noah, reflexively raised their hands and blocked in front of them. After an unknown amount of time, the dazzling light slowly subsided. However, the hearts of everyone present trembled slightly. This was because an extremely shocking sense of oppression shrouded the entire space. Soon after, such a voice resounded across the entire world. Woo 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 woo. It was like a sharp cry but also like a baby's cry. It was a sharp cry that humans could not understand at all. Along with such a sharp cry, a figure was imprinted in everyone's eyes. It was a female. Well, to be more precise, it should be a creature that was similar to a female. Her body was tied with rings and belts used for capturing. Her head was covered with messy hair that resembled snakes and pythons. Her skin looked like it had been sucked dry of water and was purplish-brown. There were no pupils in his eyes, only a red color that made people's hair stand on end. Such a female creature was like an animal. Her 4 limbs were on the ground and she slowly raised her ghoulish face and her upper body, letting out an extremely ear-piercing scream. Woo 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 woo. The scream that was completely incomprehensible to human ears resounded through the sky, turning into a shockwave that shook the surroundings. Noah, who was standing not far in front of the unknown creature, directly bore the brunt of the storm-like sound wave. His robes fluttered wildly but his expression didn't change at all. He stared intently at the woman who was screaming like a mad beast and muttered to himself, "That's right. So that's how it is. This is the gift that has protected Perseus for so long in place of the skull and shield?" It was not only Noah. In the distance, White Yiksha and 16 knights, who had personally witnessed Luo's summon an unidentified female, were similarly speechless. That idiot actually used that in this place. White Yiksha's expression became extremely ugly. If that thing is allowed to cause a ruckus here, this outer door will probably all turn into stone, right? Stone. Reverse 16 Knights also smacked his lips. In other words, that is indeed the star that Perseus controls, right? Seeing White Yiksha and Reverse 16 Knights talking about something that she did not understand, Jiuan Feinyao asked. "What are you talking about? Petrification? Star? What do you mean? Don't you understand? Milady?" Reverse 16 Knights stared closely at the terrifying woman who set off the shockwave with her scream and spoke in a low voice. "Then you should know in the legend, the weapon that Perseus who was given the mission of curing the snake-haired demon Medusa, right?" "I know," Haruhito Hikari replied. "The hero Perseus who was given the mission of curing Medusa received 4 weapons, namely helmet, boots, shield, and scythe, a total of 4. That's right, the helmet is the helmet of Hades who can turn invisible, the boots are the boots of Hermes who can fly, the shield is the shield of Athena, and the scythe is the scythe sword in that guy's hand." Reverse 16 Knights explained. Relying on these weapons, Perseus was able to cut off the head of the snake-haired demon Medusa and was able to use the petrification power of the head to accomplish more feats. And since that Perseus was invited to the box court and even created a community, then these weapons, which are gifts, should all be inherited by that incompetent young master, right? Reverse 16 Knights narrowed his eyes. It's just that in the legend, after Perseus completed his feats and ascended to the sky, before turning into a constellation, he gave the snake-haired demon's head together with the shield to Athena. That's how the shield with the snake-haired demon's head embedded in it came into being. Jiu Feinyao said with some uncertainty. In other words, that upstart only inherited the helmet, boots, and scythe, these 3 gifts? The one who answered this question was not Reverse 16 Knights but Black Rabbit. "Oh, it's not like that." Black Rabbit quietly clenched his sweaty palms and said in a low voice. Although he lost the head and shield, Perseus who ascended to the immortal constellation received a new gift of combining the head and shield. In the immortal constellation, there is a star that has been called the Demon Star since ancient times. Reverse 16 Knights said. That star is located in the immortal constellation, where the snake-haired demon's head is in the hands of Perseus. It's called Argel. Argel. Haruhito Hikari was surprised. Isn't that the name that Luo's just shouted? That's right. White Yiksha stared at the terrifying woman who was screaming. So, in place of the head and shield, Perseus received the ability to petrify. The star that plays the role of the head, as the shield of the community, is under the control of Perseus. In the many Asura gods and Buddhas, not only did they have ownership of the land, even the stars in the sky had their own ownership, which was also the so-called sovereignty. Among them, the sun, which represented the most gods, Buddhas, and myths, was divided into 24 sun sovereigns by the 2 celestial bodies of the 12 signs of the zodiac, and 12 equatorial stars on the sun's orbit. And as long as one held the sovereignty of these stars and constellations, then the person who held the sovereignty could summon the star spirit and god that represented the star, making them listen to their orders and perform their servitude. In place of the head and shield, the community named Persis received the sovereignty of the devil star located in the immortal constellation at the position of the snake-haired demon's head Argel. The woman that Luos summoned was one of the strongest races in the box, the devil star's star spirit on the immortal constellation Argel. Woo 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 woo. As if to prove everyone's thoughts, the devil star's star spirit named Argel let out a sharp cry, and her entire body suddenly expanded a little. Pa! One of the belts that bound Argel's body directly snapped. Pa 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 pa. As if it caused a chain reaction, a few belts snapped one after another. At this moment, Argel's entire body swelled up, becoming as large as a black bear. Go! Luos ordered angrily. Kill that brat. Argel. Argel suddenly raised her head and looked at Noah, a pair of bright red eyes flashing with red light. Bang! With a loud stomping sound, the star spirit named Argel suddenly shot towards Noah's direction like an arrow released from a bow. One of her hands was wrapped in strands of leather, forming the shape of a claw. In the next moment, the giant claw that was like a bear's paw rubbed against the air, bringing a sharp sound of breaking through the air. In a flash, it flashed down and struck towards Noah's direction, causing the space to tremble. Dong! The sound wave that shook the heavens, accompanied by the impact that caused the ground to tremble, surged out violently. Chapter 1284. Boom! A thunderous sound transformed into a terrifying sound wave, accompanied by a shockwave that swept out crazily. Under such a terrifying shockwave, the entire ground trembled at this moment, causing a huge crack to rapidly spread out from the center of the shockwave until it reached a distance of 100 meters. Woo! Under such a shocking shockwave, Black Rabbit, Ju Yuao, and Hurai Buyaichi blocked the incoming shockwave while letting out a somewhat depressed sound. It was obvious that they were feeling quite uncomfortable. Only White Yiksha and 16 Knights still stood in place with a calm expression. They directly endured the incoming shockwave, but their gazes were firmly fixed in front of them, unwilling to move away for even a moment. Under such circumstances, Luos, who was floating in the air, let out a carefree and delightful laugh. Did you see that? This is Argel's power. A mere nameless scoundrel can't touch it at all. It had to be said that Luo's triumphant laughter was indeed quite ear-piercing. As a result, just as the laughter sounded, a shocking shockwave shook the center of the field, blowing away the surrounding sand and dust. Luo's laughter came to an abrupt end. White Yiksha, 16 Knights, Black Rabbit, Ju Yuao, and Hurai Buyaichi all slightly widened their eyes. In front of Argel, who had become as huge as a black bear, stood a shield. A huge shield that was like a city wall, inlaid with decorative petals. Argel's attack that could shake the ground landed on such a shield and was blocked. Immediately after, a voice sounded from behind the shield. Star Spirit? This voice carried a bit of battle intent. Interesting. As soon as the voice fell, the huge shield immediately distorted and disappeared like a mirage. Noah, who was standing as straight as before, cast his gaze on Argel, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Suddenly, a golden ripple fluctuated around Noah and covered Noah's entire body. Within it, there were all kinds of swords, knives, spears, halberds, and other relics that were like arrows on a bow were ejected from the golden ripple. They turned into streams of light and landed on Argel's body. Bang 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 bang. One by one, the relics landed on Argel's body like cannonballs. The impact was so violent that it felt like an explosion. Argel was sent flying and smashed into the ground not far away. Although you're just a spoiled brat who inherited it because of his ancestors' achievements, no matter what, you're still one of the most powerful species in Hakata, right? Noah looked at Argel, who was on the ground, with a rare bold smile on his face. So, show me the power of the most powerful species in Hakata. Then all kinds of relics such as knives, swords, spears, halberds and other relics were ejected from the golden ripple one after another. They were like lasers with meteor-like brilliance, flashing through the air and enveloping Argel like raindrops. Ah 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 ah. Argel let out an ear-piercing shriek. He raised his arm and swung it as if he was swinging a huge stone plate, swinging the rain of relics that were coming at him. Clang 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 clang. His huge palm, which was as thick as a bear's paw, smashed the relics that were coming at him one by one. Argel was like a wild beast. He swung his huge palm and smashed the relics that were coming at him one by one. At the same time he moved forward in the rain of relics, trying to rush to Noah's front. Unfortunately, Argel obviously did not have the physical ability to break the rules like 16 knights. When the Devil Star's star spirit smashed down the 27th precious artifact, a long spear suddenly flew over and landed on the hand that was swinging up. Clang! Amidst the crisp sound of steel clashing against steel, the powerful impact stopped Argel in his tracks. Clang clang! The two relics that came after the spear made Argel lose his balance and take 2 steps back. Swish 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 swish. At the same time, the rain of relics was like bullets that were fired at Argel's body. Poochie! A long sword pierced Argel's shoulder. Poochie! Following closely behind, the relics pierced through Argel's arms, legs and waist. Woo 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 woo. Argel let out a painful shriek that shook the entire atmosphere under the night sky. Impossible. Luos cried out in disbelief. How could Argel not be able to catch some weapons? Even if they were bestowed weapons, it's impossible for Argel to not be able to catch more than 20 of them. While saying that, Lois seemed to have thought of something. His gaze turned fearful as he looked at the relics that popped out of the golden ripples around Noah. Could it be that those are all bestowed weapons with Godhead? Godhead. It was a gift that could upgrade a species to the highest level. With Godhead, not only could one gain an explosive upgrade in life level, but it could also upgrade one's spiritual level to the highest level. As a result, the rest of one's gifts would be greatly enhanced. In the entire box court, it was a must-have gift for a powerhouse. For example, Letitia was a purebred vampire with Godhead. In the past, she was even one of the devil kings who wreaked havoc in the box court. However, after being stripped of her Godhead, Letitia's strength was reduced to less than 1/10 of her original strength. One could imagine how precious and powerful a gift called Godhead was. Not only could life have Godhead, but weapons could also be bestowed with Godhead. For example, in Norse mythology, the main god Odin had a godly spear called Gungnir. In Greek mythology, the godly king Zeus had a godly shield called Aegis. Another example would be the divine weapon wielded by the heavenly emperor Sakra of Hinduism, the Vajra. These were the most famous examples of Godhead weapons, and each of them had terrifying power. Noah's relics naturally did not have the Godhead bestowed by the gods of this world. However, these treasures were the same as the most famous Godhead weapons. They originated from myths and legends and were wielded by gods and heroes that only existed in myths and legends. Regardless of whether it was in terms of ability or power, there was no difference. Therefore, in the box court, the relics were Godhead weapons. Impossible. It's impossible. Looking at the space around Noah and the relics that came out of the golden ripples, Luos started to feel fear. How is it possible for someone to have so many Godhead blessings? And all of them can be used? As mentioned before, weapons were materialized gifts. Although these gifts were not like personal gifts that directly fused with the soul and could not be taken away, they were extremely picky about the user. Those who could not meet the requirements would not be able to use the powerful Godhead weapons. Needless to say, even some Asura gods and Buddhas weren't able to freely use weapons bestowed with Godhead-grade weapons. Now, however, Noah was throwing divine bestowed weapons that were absolute treasures to Argel as if they didn't cost anything. Who's the nouveau riche here? Not to mention Luos, even White Yiksha's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Why are there so many Godhead bestowed weapons? How is this possible? No. It's impossible. Even Black Rabbit's lips were trembling. How could someone have so many Godhead weapons? Are they all replicas? Godhead weapons? No wonder it took so much effort to send those weapons flying. 16 Knight's eyes flashed and he clenched his fists tightly. However, if those are really Godhead weapons, it means that the gifts of those weapons have not been released yet, right? That guy actually dared to hide such a huge trump card for me? Without a doubt. At this moment, everyone was shocked. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.